All right, trying this again. We had
And
interesting.
I fully
No, shut up, Prayer. All right, so as I was saying before, I realized that I may have been having some technical issues here. I've got a lot planned tonight. I want to talk about Prager, and see, so PragerU is like pretty offensive to me for several reasons. Number one, PragerU is a fake university for those that don't know. Like, they have no accreditation. There's no actual professors that work for them, none of this stuff. Instead, they have talking heads that show up on there and will occasionally talk about whatever various subject that they want to produce a video for. It was started by Dennis Prager right here. And it was also funded by like some, wealthy media mogul that ended up helping create this. They produce a lot of misinformation for the right and a lot of conservative propaganda, a lot of like anti-LGBT content, and then like basically any type of apologetics you can think of for conservatives, they produce that. So I have a huge issue with them. And one of the problems that I have is that Dennis here does very often what a lot of people do on the right, especially the religious right, is they will complain all the time that the left is immoral, or they'll specifically say like, oh, if you're an atheist, how can you have morality? As you can see, I've already started this video a little bit because I want to skip past, because he talks about like radio show right here, talks about the T.W. Lewis Foundation. Then he's going to get into addressing criticism on his last fireside, and then the most mocked subject on PragerU. I want to talk about the moral aspects. It seems like this channel just ends up getting wrong like entirely. So with that, I will say, let's let Dennis talk for a second. And I'll try this time. I want to cut this up into segments. So I'm going to do PragerU, and then I'll move on to, I've got like Matt Walsh I want to talk about. There's a lot of topics I want to get to tonight. So hopefully it doesn't take me all night long this time, but I want to give each one of them their fair due. And I was also thinking that the benefit of watching this during the live stream will be that you can watch all the content. You can see all the silly antics and all the things that, I just kind of like think off the top of my head between segments. Then after I do the whole thing, I'll end up chopping it up so that if you want to come back later and watch each segment individually, you can do so. So, look, my chat is actually working now. Hello, Lilith. Always good to see you.
appreciate that fact. I understand it. I don't lose sleep over it. But there's a very interesting phenomenon that you probably would not have guessed. So, we have videos on every subject except, as it happens, natural sciences. We're not going to teach botany or chemistry or biology. Certainly.
Well, they're not certified to teach anything. We're not going to teach like botany or, these other sciences. Like, why are y'all producing anything? Why don't you be honest with that? Like, it's unironic. People will produce these videos and share them as if it's actual information that people need to know. Like, hey, they're actually producing something that you can learn from. It's like, why don't you reveal your accreditation, Dennis?
Certainly can't do it in 5 minutes, and that's not our intent. We want to give wisdom. We're not like there morality. To simply give data or knowledge. We are there to give knowledge of history. I mean, we have videos on very important figures in history, which are fascinating, whether it's Walt Disney or George Washington or whomever it might be. Booker T. Washington is one of my favorite people.
Sounds like just a bunch of opinion to me. Like, oh, we're making videos on historical figures. You don't say. So you just give us your opinion on them, right? What else what are you planning on teaching us,
so
Dennis?
we don't have anything in the natural sciences or math, for example. We understand that, but otherwise we talk about everything. What do you think gets the most hatred of all the subjects? I mean, we've defended
I don't
the
know.
free market
When
and
y'all
capitalism
slavery,
and
that
America.
got a lot. In fact, you took it
and
down. That one wasn't
and
good.
Taught all sorts of issues with regard to morality and a lot of personal issues, a lot of male-female issues.
Talk about morality.
You know what gets the
issues,
most,
like
not just
people,
hatred,
like me?
but
How about
mockery.
vitriol and mockery?
is anytime we put up a video defending the existence of God or making the case for biblical values, in other words, values rooted in the Bible.
You mean Christian nationalism. Anytime we make videos where we defend Christian nationalism, or we insult minority communities, or we pretend that if you don't have our values, then you must be a degenerate of some kind, people kind of take issue with that for some reason.
The Judeo-Christian value system and the like.
What is the Judeo-Christian value system, do you think? Do you think there's like one system that they both share, or is there a reason why some of them are Jews and some of them are Christians? What is the shared value system, do you think? What's his system?
That's what gets the most mockery.
All right.
And again, not just hatred, but hatred and mockery.
Well, I don't hate you. I just think you're silly.
And I always wonder, and I still wonder why. I'm not completely certain why it is, but I think it's part of a brainwash that has taken place that has convinced a fair number of people in America and in the West generally that religion is for stupid people.
No, religion is not for stupid people. There are plenty of intelligent people that are religious. All right, I'm not going to sit here and say like Francis Collins, whatever, the Human Genome Project. There are some brilliant scientists that unfortunately are theists for whatever reason. And I'll just say, I know, and it's an older PragerU video. It's like a year and some change, whatever. But I thought it was kind of interesting because Dennis goes into morality here. And I want to really touch on this because it's not just, so you can see what he's setting up. He's like, he wants to defend like religious morality or whatever. And I'm fine with that. I keep seeing all these questions about like, if you're an atheist, how could you be moral, or how can you have morals? I want to address that in this video because I think that PragerU is a prime example here about like what religious people mean when they say morality versus what morality actually is.
This is truly what a lot of people have been taught and believe, that if you are intelligent and rational, you cannot be religious. That it's a sort of mutually exclusive idea.
Well, it depends.
So therefore,
like, what are you defending? You say, well, you can't be intelligent and rational and be religious. It's like, well, it depends on the claims you're making. Because if you're saying, hello, Hannah, if you're saying that, well, we just have some philosophical questions about God, sure, we can all be intelligent and rational and think about it. If you want to say something like Noah's Ark actually happened and that there were just two people that were Adam and Eve, and then the Bible is like correct on all the things that happened, like that's a different story, right?
For when we present an idea, as I do, for example, in my PragerU videos on the 10 Commandments, the mockery, especially, here's one: how do you know that murder is wrong if God did not say do not murder?
Let's really think about that. So that's going to be a gotcha, right? What do y'all think, chat? Do you think that if you are not religious, do you think it's possible that you know that you shouldn't go around murdering people? Do you think that you need a religious text to teach you that? I'm just curious on what our standard is for like where our morals actually come from, these ethics. Let's see what his answer is to this question.
Now, here's the irony. I've debated this at Oxford. I've debated this with professors who are atheists, and they all agree. If there is no, they agree. That's the irony. If there is no God, you don't know murder is wrong. You can posit it is wrong. You can believe it is wrong. You can offer it as a great value, but you don't know it because
how do you know it?
It's not knowable.
See, he's totally wrong here. I'm going to let him get through this. Then I'm going to like rip this to pieces, like, because he keeps saying, well, you can't, as one thing is wrong. When I don't hear an ethical system from him, all I hear is like, well, according to the Bible, it's wrong, and if you don't agree with this, then you can't explain it. We can't explain it.
You can know that this is paper. Paper has a fixed chemical physical quality.
Physical science.
I can prove this is paper. I cannot prove murder is wrong. You can believe it is wrong, and I certainly hope you do, but it's a belief. So I believe God said it is wrong. You believe you said it is wrong, or your society has said it is wrong. By any notion of logic, it is obvious that if there is a God who said murder is wrong, that's a lot more of an objective reality, then I believe murder is wrong.
No, it's not. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. Let's go to, how about, where do I want to? I'm going to pull up something. Let's have some fun real quick. Let's do some drawing. Do y'all want to draw? Let's see here. Deadpan says, no, we know not to murder people. Our conscience, as well as what we're taught by school, parents, or society tells us you definitely don't need religion. You're all right. You are right. We don't need religion to know that murder is wrong. I want to get to why. So I said before I want to talk about morality, right? So let's cover this real quick. Yeah, that's not objective. It's still subjective. Of course, Lilith, because you're still, anything that's filtered through your mind has to be subjective, right? So let's go through this. So what he's talking about is he's asking a moral argument, right? And if we have a moral argument, and this is what Prager and like all these like little goons get wrong. So if you have any single question, like, is murder wrong? Well, murder is a single point, right? So we would have one moral question. So it would be, let's go here. Murder wrong, right? And he's saying that it is that's one moral question. Well, the problem is that whenever you have a moral question, you need an ethical system. So what are the ethical systems that we could have, right? There's three major ones. So our first ethical system is going to be utilitarianism, right? Utilitarianism. The second one is going to be deontological. And the third one is going to be what we call virtue ethics. These are the things that whenever people talk about morals, they are using one of those systems in order to get their morality. So going by each one of them, and this is just very basic. I'm not a philosopher here, but I damn sure know morality. I know ethics. So this will be really easy. And notice like someone like Prager or religious folks, whenever they ask you about like, well, how do you know this? How can you know what is and is not moral and these kinds of things? They don't ever talk about what actual systems to use. They want to just say, well, the Bible says. Well, the Bible's saying, and he even said, well, if God says this, and that's like a higher authority. Well, we don't need that higher authority to get to something like, even if you're saying it's just subjective. So we would look here and we would say, okay, looking at utilitarianism in the most like nutshell way, you say that we are concerned with what is and is not ethical by like what function it serves. So you can have like consequentialism also stems off from this. And you say like, I want to know like what would give the greatest good to the greatest amount of people. That's like utilitarianism. So like the trolley question where it's like, oh, if you've got 5 people on the track versus the like one fat guy, would you push the fat guy off to kill him on a switch to switch the train off from hitting 5 people? Most utilitarians would answer yes. It's very easy. The second one, deontological. So deontologists basically believe that you can get ethics and morals through pure reason and rationality. So whenever you say, well, how can an atheist like come to some moral conclusion without God? Well, they can be a deontologist as myself. I'm a threshold deontologist to be more specific. But religious people end up being another branch of deontologists, at least pretty often. They end up being religious deontologists. So they think they're doing the exact same thing. Oh, I use logic and reason, but it's God that gives it instead of like them reviewing it themselves. The last one, and this is like not too many people in the modern era use virtue ethics. Virtue ethics basically claim that virtues are things that we can know, like bravery and that sort of thing. And on the scale of bravery, like it's a spectrum, and if right in the middle you have brave, on the far end of it, on like the extreme end, you have recklessness. Then on the other end of that, you have cowardice. And they'll say that the goal for virtue ethicists, like Aristotle, is to be right in the middle. And then if you are a virtuous person, you have all these different virtues and you have all of them in moderation, whatever else. Well, it's just not very popular these days. Virtue ethics have fallen out of favor because there's all sorts of moral quandaries that they cannot answer. They don't really count for too much. So that's the problem. If somebody asks me, if a Christian is like, well, how do you get to moral claims or whatever else? I'm going to expect them to appeal to a moral system, like an ethical system. So moral questions individually don't tell you jack or shit about like someone's beliefs. But if you get what their ethical framework is, then you can understand where they're coming from. So even if you have an atheist, or you have a Buddhist, or you have somebody who practices, like you have a Muslim, or you have a Christian, they all of us use these same ethical frameworks. There is no special framework for religious people. There's no secret divine knowledge, none of that stuff. All they have is a book. And let's say, for instance, so if you have one book that makes moral proclamations in it, right? And you say that we have like the Bible, and the Bible tells us what is and is not moral. And there's like whatever stuff is in this book. The problem is that book is not a system. It's nothing but a like set. Even if there's like laws in there, we could do the same thing. We could make an appeal to like our Constitution. I know that my drawing is not like, I'm not an artist, y'all. So if we have our American Constitution, and then we have like all the founding fathers that wrote the book or wrote the Constitution. If I asked you like, well, is it illegal to murder? And you say, well, according to the Constitution, it's illegal to murder. And I say, okay, well, why is it illegal to murder? Like, why ought that be a law? If you are going to tell me, well, we have to look at the law and then we have to compare it to journals and stuff of the of our founding fathers, so we can interpret what their will was when they wrote the Constitution to get that answer, that's pretty fucking weak, right? The real question is, what was the ethical framework that they were using when they wrote this Constitution? And there were so many different founding fathers. They all had different ideas about, ethics, and that's why they argued and fought over things. That's why we still argue and fight over ethics these days. Those are very complex questions when it comes to philosophy. What it is not is something that somebody like Dennis Prager is going to be able to just hand wave. Maybe I'll do some more doodling and drawing for y'all later. But you can't just say that, well, if you don't have God, you're not ethical. Motherfucker, what's your ethical framework? Don't just tell me that you're ethical.
This should be completely non-controversial. As atheists have acknowledged this ever since they started debating the issue. Now they'll say, well, look, but there is no God, so I'm stuck. I got to figure out how to get people not to murder. That's an honorable position.
Yeah, what's your framework?
I respect that.
What's your ethics?
But you can't deny that God saying do not murder is a lot more powerful than society says do not murder, or the cops say do not murder, or my conscience says do not murder.
No, it's not. Because so if he's looking at the Bible, he says, well, God says do not murder. That makes it like more valuable, whatever else. That's a blatant appeal to authority. And all you're doing is saying, well, God is the, biggest, toughest guy, so I ought to listen to whatever they say. But just because you have power or you have might, that does not necessarily mean that you are ethically correct. That's what the problem is. He's saying that, well, because his opinion is subjective, or the cop's opinion, that's like moral relativism. That's all their subjective opinions. Well, you know what? If you make an appeal to God, that would mean that, Lilith, I know, I misspelled utilitarianism. Whoops. But my spelling's not that great. No, you're still appealing to God's authority. And even if it came from God, that's God's subjective opinion. God is still a thinking agent, right? And then, how would you know that God's morality or God's ethics are superior to our ethics? Can you demonstrate that, Prager? No, you fucking can't. Okay,
so that's just mocked all over the internet, as you can see. What was the name of that woman?
Yeah, Deadpan. Is Dennis ignoring that God has told people to murder in the Bible in some verses? Oh, absolutely. Oh, I got one even better than that. How about the fact that Noah's Ark, right? So God says, hey, build a boat. I'll send a bunch of animals to you, and y'all can float around on the planet, and you'll survive the flood, right? Well, doesn't that mean that when God flooded the planet, if Noah and his family and those animals were the only ones that survived, wouldn't that mean that God literally drowned the whole, planet's worth of babies and puppies and kittens and any innocent person that like just didn't happen to be there. Like, and that's just one time that God wipes out all of life. Every baby that was not on that boat got drowned. I guess God is good. Disagree? God has never spoken to me. Hannah says, God's never spoken to me in person, but I actively participate in society. So society telling me something is wrong outweighs anything God says. Well, I mean, I could see, yeah, sure, because there's like physical consequences to like pissing off a whole bunch of very intelligent apes, right? I would see your point in there. I don't agree with moral relativism at all. Like, just because a bunch of people say something is moral, I don't think that necessarily makes it moral, but it is the fact that they can enforce laws on you. Lilith, so I'm guessing he is a sociopathic and wouldn't know. Oh, did you know, Lilith, did you know that Prager, Dennis said that if there was no God, then raping would be right. And that he has to resist these urges that he has to go around and just have sex with whoever he wants to. And he has to use like his religion to stop it. So unironically, yes, he has made the statement that if he wasn't religious, if he didn't believe in God, he would have trouble not just running around raping people. It's disgusting.
The comedian, yeah, Samantha Bee mocked it, right? Yeah, okay. But that's all. See, but whenever people mock, and that's all they do, I know they don't know how to deal with it intellectually.
He's basically doing the human extinction.
Because if you can
exactly from Dragon Ball Z, I love it.
Demolish an argument intellectually, why would you use mockery?
Oh, I have no problem. Like, it's like you can demolish it intellectually. It's like, dude, I'm picking this apart so easy, hun. You don't have to worry about that. But I'm going to mock you as well because you're an awful person, and you've said stuff like it's difficult for you not to just go around raping people. That kind of stuff bothers me, Dennis. That's why we make fun of you. It's not just that you're wrong. It's also that you're an awful human being, just for the record.
Mockery may make you feel good, but it is not persuasive.
It makes me so, I love it.
You have not used reason. You have used insult and the like, but it is not an argument. So apparently I spoke about, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know what I think, so I assume this is fairly accurate.
I don't know what's wrong with
where I mentioned that the science is science and scientists are scientists. Apparently,
science is science and scientists are scientists. Like, that's a good tautology there, Dennis. Is that big brained enough for you, Dennis? Like, you just stated, well, this thing is what it is. Okay. What's the big brain, like, 500 IQ take here that's going to blow us away? Because I have a feeling... I haven't watched all this video. I'm only going to get to a couple points before I move on to something else because Dennis is boring as fuck. But I wanted to go and deal with his morality.
This was too complex a thought for a fair number of people who thought I was deriding science when I was saying that scientists are humans like everybody else. Scientists, as I said, run the gamut of brilliant and wise to stupid and foolish, just like plumbers and chiropractors and dentists and Uber drivers and any other group. Scientists are not one whit wiser than electricians.
Okay, this is flat. I'm just going to, right quick, I promise, I'm going to let him keep going. I'm not going to keep interrupting every 2 seconds. But whenever you say, like, well, scientists are no small, not even one whit than like an electrician or something like that. Look, we can all say that everyone has value. We should all value like our lives and the lives of our neighbors and everything else. I'm a socialist. If I did not agree, if I didn't value other people, I would not hold my political beliefs. What I will say, though, is that this is flat out like anti-intellectualism right here. This is where he's basically like deriding the idea that scientists are brilliant people. I mean, like, let's be real here. Some of our like greatest, most brilliant minds are in fact scientists. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have a very smart electrician or a very smart plumber or whatever else. I mean, I work a blue collar job myself. So I don't think that, like, I don't look out at people and say, oh, people are generally just stupid. No. But what I will say is that scientists and those in academia tend to be very, very well educated. And it's also very telling to me that he was talking about, like, he's saying that like mockery is not persuasive, that, scientists don't really, they're not as smart as everybody thinks that they are. And he's also talking about morality, like Christian and Judeo-Christian values and stuff like that. So here's my question. What the fuck do scientists have to do with Judeo-Christian values or morality? Like, I guarantee you he doesn't answer this question because he's already made a very fucking stupid mistake.
but we think they are because people believe in science.
Yeah, it's science.
Not just in science,
the stuff that builds
in
planes.
its facts, H2O is water, but in science as the answer to life's questions.
It answers
Science does not answer life's questions. It answers questions such as, why does a cancer cell metastasize? What is the gravitational pull of the sun on the planets?
That's
why? Science, and only science, can answer.
Yeah, why?
I don't look to the Bible to figure out the gravitational pull of the sun.
Sure,
or how to deal with metastasizing cancer cells.
Yeah, because
I don't know one religious person who does. So it's a non-issue. Science, as I even said last time, men of science, women of science have saved my life.
Yeah. Okay. So he's not. I really don't think it's going to. Deadpan says the right, especially the religious right, always seem to be at war with scientists, and it's so absurd. Lol. Like it is true. Like the anti-intellectualism is ridiculous. Like I can't believe how many people like don't accept that the COVID vaccine is safe. Like it's an absurdity, and it's people like this that spread this misinformation. So well, they're not really all that smart. Like who knows, if this stuff really actually works or not. It's a huge problem, and there's a giant red flag right here for what he's talking about, but I don't think he even knows what the fuck he's talking about. Why can't science tell you how you ought to live? If anyone in the chat knows, just type what do you think I'm getting at here?
I would be paralyzed and perhaps dead if it were not for surgeons. All right, sure. This arm was getting paralyzed, and I had a 7-hour surgery.
Too bad they couldn't fix your brain.
And this great surgeon saved my left arm.
Yeah, Bill Carson.
Because of what was happening in my back congenitally. Okay? My gratitude to doctors is, as scientists, if you will, is enormous.
Not enough to insinuate they're not very smart.
I don't assume that any of my surgeons have a better take on capital punishment or the size of government than anybody else. And that's not a knock on them.
Ooh, Manly Man Joe, 2009, SJW. Are you talking about me, sweetheart? Or are you talking about Dennis? Because, I don't know. You just had to come in here and drop that, right? So what he's talking about is the is-ought problem. Science is it can only deal with epistemological claims. So it deals with stuff. Oh, I know, right? Big Biden. Good guy Joe. It talks about stuff that actually is, right? So when we say is, we're talking about you say what is, what's gravity? How fast does stuff fall to the earth? What's the speed of light? How can you cure cancer cells from replicating or whatever else? All of these things, that's what is. Then when you say what ought is, those are normative claims. So you sound like you should not be an asshole. You should accept people, you should trust people, whatever else. All of these should or you ought not do whatever. Those types of claims are normative claims. Science can't touch them. That's philosophy. And I know that I really doubt that he knows this. He wouldn't have just asked all stupid fucking questions unless, they're leading questions that he's asking because he wants his audience to not only go, yep, science can't answer how to be good or whatever else. But let's see here. We don't need... Yeah, whatever. Go be your fucking self. Dennis Prager. I absolutely it's absurd. Dennis has no idea the difference between this fucking is-ought question. And he wants to sit here and say, well, scientists don't know this or scientists don't know that. That's because that's the realm of philosophy. And philosophy has completely ripped apart any type of when you talk about biblical stuff, when you're is the Bible moral? When you're talking about moral questions, you obliterate those with philosophy. You answer those with philosophy. You don't answer those with science. So when Dennis says, well, scientists, you can't put morality in a beaker, no one is fucking saying that we do that. Atheists, like myself, aren't claiming that. We point to philosophy to get our answers about is ought. There's all sorts of fascinating moral dilemmas that you can consider upon or whatever if you want to suss out where you sit on moral issues. This is not that hard. Everyone knows about the fucking is-ought gap. Dennis is sitting here going well, we don't know why. Why can't scientists answer it? Because it's a loaded, dumb fuck question. It is a trick question. It's because you cannot epistemologically prove normative claims. That's why
would
Dennis,
they? I don't go to a surgeon for wisdom about society.
I did not know the Mardi Gras allowed this SJW to steal their gear. You dumb fuck. I'm Cajun, you stupid ass. That's why I've got the Mardi Gras stuff on. I'm literally Cajun. Nice try, though.
I go to a surgeon for knowledge about how to correct a nerve problem in my spine. I don't know why this is, why all the mockery? Because I said that science is a substitute religion? For many people it is.
What's the religion of
science? So they say, well, that's ridiculous. Science is fact-based and religion is faith-based. The moment you say science tells you anything other than facts, it's a religion.
No, like, that's not what we're saying. We say philosophy. We're not saying that, oh, you go and get your information from science to make normative claims. You don't. If you have an epistemological question, if you have a descriptive question about the universe, you ask a scientist, because science is a methodology. Science is an inductive methodology to explore the universe around us, and that's all it is. Science does not answer moral questions, and science does not claim to. It is not a religion. It is a methodology. Anything else that you could say, like Scientology is a religion, which has nothing to fucking do with science. But people like Dennis Prager want to sit here and, you know, spout out their anti-intellectual claims and say, well, science can't answer normative claims. Well, no shit.
If I say to you, what do you believe in? And your answer is science, then science is functioning as a religion. Science doesn't tell you not to murder.
Science has given us airplanes, taken us to space, given us vaccines. It has given us, you know, HVAC units. It's given us like climate control for buildings. Science has given us all sorts of motorcycles, bifocals, like all the entire area of health. Science has given us so fucking much that has made our quality of life. Even the phones that you can sit here, the like mass media conglomerates that like Dennis Prager conservatives pass their propaganda out. Science has helped make all of that infrastructure and made that possible. And he wants to sit here and like look down his nose like, well, a scientist can't tell you whether you should or should not murder somebody by looking at something in a beaker. Okay, buddy.
Science doesn't tell you not to steal. Science doesn't tell you not to do anything bad. It doesn't tell you to do anything good. Science has nothing moral to teach us. That's not a knock on science.
Yeah, philosophy.
If I study geology, do I know good and evil? If I study chemistry, do I know good and evil?
Do you get good and evil if you study religion? Ha, no.
Do mitochondria tell me honor my parents? But all of this is new to so many secular people who've gone to college.
It's not. We for a lot of us, we've heard all this stuff. Like I know the Bible very well, Dennis. It's not true. If you want to, the best way that you can create atheists is have them read holy books front to back.
This is all new. So instead of dealing with what I say, they mock it. Here's a classic. Well, Dennis Prager makes conservatives look retarded. See, that's a deep.
I wouldn't even say the R word. I would just say that Dennis Prager is an idiot. That's what I would say. Anyway, he's moving on to like his comments and stuff like that, which I don't give a fuck about. I just wanted to sit here and pick that apart. And if any of you that are in chat that were like trying to sit here and like criticize me, like making fun of me for being an SJW or whatever, like what is your issue precisely? Like, why don't you sit down and join our little conversation for a bit? You might learn something. Like, there's no reason to come in and just be a dick for no reason. I'm just saying. So, in this section, we covered, he's basically going to sit here and talk about religious morality versus atheists, once again insinuating that atheists have morality or that we cannot understand ethical systems or anything of the sort. I covered exactly why it's not true, because we already went over ethics, and ethical systems come from philosophy. So ethical systems are like utilitarianism, consequentialism, deontology, and virtue ethics. Most people don't use virtue ethics anymore, but we still use utilitarianism and we use deontology. And the other aspect of morality is the fact that you can have, like, he's made a reference to where he says that, well, if a group of people tell you to do something, it's like he's appealing to moral relativism, where they're saying, like, if there's a group of people that are all telling you what to do, like a society or whatever, that thing is or is not moral, versus subjective morality, which is like, you know, your opinion that you derive through filtering all the things through the lens of your brain to come to your ethical conclusions, versus objective, I know they are insinuating that I culturally appropriated my costume when I am literally fucking Cajun. It's like, babe, it's like, all you had to do is just ask, like, hey, that looks like a Mardi Gras outfit. Like, what's that about? And I would have been like, oh, well, since you asked, it is literally part of my heritage. And I know how much you conservatives love your heritage. So I think that was pretty fun. I like picking apart PragerU. They're kind of like ironically like a soft target. I don't understand how anybody listens to that, especially conservatives, and they feel like, oh well, science can't answer these like normative questions, therefore that is somehow makes science weak. Like I don't understand it. Like science never claimed that they could answer those questions, and we covered all the various reasons why. And hopefully if you're a religious person and you disagree with me on this, because like I said, I want to make these into different segments, so coming toward the end of this segment, if you are a religious person and you disagree with like atheists, or you say I don't see how atheists could be moral, do you understand where I'm coming from, that you need an ethical framework to answer these questions? And if you still think that it's not possible for atheists to possess a moral framework, even I'd like you to answer this question. What framework are you using as a religious person that an atheist couldn't also use? Like, don't point to the Bible, because we covered this earlier. The Bible is just a list of fucking rules. And just like we say, well, God said, okay, well, I could just point to the Constitution. And then we say, well, how do we know the Constitution's reliable? I could say, well, look at the founding fathers and look at all their opinions and make a blatant appeal to authority. So if we know that appeals to authority don't work, you can't just point at a set of laws and say that thing is moral because I said it's moral. What is your foundation for morality and for ethics? God, if I could speak for a second. All right. So now that we went over all of that, the next area I want to go to is, let's talk about abortion. I know that this is a subject that makes everyone happy, right? I know it's pretty popular on TikTok right now, but let's be honest with you, these arguments have been going on like for a very long time. And especially there was a person named Judith Thompson, and they wrote a paper that basically offered what they called a defense of abortion, but they also went over some areas at the end of it as far as like when we should outlaw or whatever else. I'm going to comment on this because I don't want people to feel like I'm straw manning like people that are anti-abortion, because I'm pro-choice. So I want to give a fair shake. This is one of the like primary philosophical principles of why people that like, from kind of like a both sides perspective, and we will come and talk about this.
Academy for Social Change presents Thompson.
Isn't exciting? I know that everybody in chat loves abortion, right?
Whether you're speaking from a legal, religious, or moral perspective, is far from new. All right,
I already disagree with this. I know I'm like, just I take issue with everything, right? So the very first thing, like this is going to be a huge point in this. If you're familiar with these subjects at all, I'm eating my hair. Gross. All right. Oh, that's gorgeous. So one of the problems that I have right here is that they immediately start with this like right of the unborn child. Well, if they're an unborn child, like what specifically do you mean? Are you talking about a zygote? Are you talking about a fetus? Are you talking about like a like halfway through development, like halfway through gestation? Or are we talking like 8 months old here? Like I think everybody agrees that there is some nuance here. Difference between saying like, yeah, sure, we are all okay with you aborting like a fetus versus like aborting a like 8-month-old, right?
Large chunk of the argument center around whether the fetus is considered a person and what rights that person has in comparison to the rights of the woman carrying the child.
All right, so a fetus, I'll say this, a fetus is not a person. I know a lot of people want to argue the personhood argument. That's not my favorite argument. The where I sit on this is the bodily autonomy right there. I think that hands down answers questions on abortion, and I'll get to that in a second. The personhood argument, basically, and this is like where I think Destiny is kind of, he frustrates me because he is pro-choice, so I will give him credit there. And he says that he struggles with this. He's like 45% versus 55%, like one way or the other. And he's like pro-choice in that way. And his argument completely depends on personhood. And I don't like that because it's 100% arbitrary, right? Because he wants to say like, some people say that you should be granted personhood at the moment of inception or conception. Then other people say that it's not until like at some point during the process, you suddenly have what they say like a conscious or experience where like that is how they're defining personhood. Then legally, in the United States at least, someone is not considered a person until they are born. And that's why they say like you have the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all that kind of stuff. If you notice it at the very beginning of that amendment, it says to all persons born in the United States, because the founding fathers and people way back yonder, they knew that women had like people that have wombs will have miscarriages naturally. So it was not necessarily a reliable thing to say like this pregnancy is going to be a person. And that's one of my biggest problems with the personhood argument. You're talking about a pregnancy, and it takes the average woman something like 100 attempts of having sex before they have a pregnancy that will take. So they have constant, like all sorts of their body will naturally abort the process if there's anything wrong, some kind of like cellular reproduction problem, if the zygote, if it doesn't attach right, any of this stuff. So it's very unfortunate. A lot of women end up having like abortions and like naturally, and not even realize their body did it. That's the problem with the personhood argument.
That a person is a person from the moment of conception, and thus a fetus has a right to life. Judith Jarvis Thompson argued back in the 1970s that such reasoning doesn't actually settle the debate.
Of course it doesn't.
Even if it's assumed for the sake of argument that a fetus is a person from moment of conception, nothing is proved on whether or not abortion is permissible. Rather, one would have to show that this person's right to life outweighs both the mother's autonomy over her body and her own right to life.
All right. See, this is where I start having like problems. Like I'm trying not to get like upset with this. This irritates me so much. All right. That what they're trying to show right here, like we have to argue the life of the child outweighs the life of the mother and her rights. That's the problem. That's why bodily autonomy by itself defeats this argument that, we should outlaw abortion, because every person that can get pregnant has a right to their own bodily autonomy. They have a right to decide who gets to use their body and in what way their body is used. It's all about consent, 100%. I'm going to let them get through a little bit of this, and then I'll, depending on what they talk about, I'll pull up my little sketch pad again, and I'll draw out my argument of explaining this.
Thompson attempts to see if it does, in her article, A Defense of Abortion. Granted that the fetus is a person, the extremist pro-life view would state that abortion is thus never permissible because the baby has a right to life. However, this view fails to take into account the pregnant woman's perspective. In the case where pregnancy directly threatens the mother's life...
Wait. No. You can't go and say that the fetus has a right to life and the fetus, has all these rights and everything else. Then turn around and when it's fucking convenient, say, oh, well, the pregnancy is now a fucking bomb. All right. That's like literally arbitrary for them to do that, because they did not make the distinction of what makes the child, like what makes that fetus suddenly become thought of as an explosive device instead of like being, any other pregnancy. Because let's be real here. Any pregnancy can lead to the death of the mother during delivery, only because of, that pesky thing that Dennis Prager hates, science. Only because of science and modern medicine has the mortality rate for women gone way down during childbirth. But historically, like all sorts of people were lost during childbirth. Like it was very, very common for people to die giving birth. I don't like the fact that this video just arbitrarily, it's like, well, the fetus has rights and blah 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 blah, and then like unless it's a ticking time bomb and it's going to kill the mother. Well, how the fuck do you know? Unless it's like you say something like it's a ectopic pregnancy, so it's like it will definitely like on a rupture her umbilical cord and fallopian tubes. But let's let them finish this.
Must we insist that she has to pass?
Am I crazy? Does anybody else like see like what's going on here? Like it's a baby. No, it's a bomb.
Furthermore, to always argue for the carrying of the baby to term would be completely ignoring the woman's right to life and, in essence, stating that the fetus's life is of a higher value than hers.
Y'all said you could
argue that. The argument over abortion, according to Thompson, routinely ignores the woman's perspective.
The bomb, baby.
Instead, it is debated whether a third party should be permitted to perform abortions.
I give no fucks about the third party argument. This is like brain dead shit here. It's like, well, there's a philosophical debate whether you should allow a third party to make this decision or intervene or whatever else. It's like, all right, why would you say that about abortion? Why wouldn't you just step in at any arbitrary like health risk that could threaten your life? You might wait. We don't know if we can do open heart surgery on you because it might not be ethical for a third party to step in and tamper with your heart. Or if you say, oh, somebody had a stroke or they have to be, hooked up to a ventilator or something like that. It's like, well, we don't know if we can do that because we don't know if a third party person should interfere. This one is flagrantly a flaming pile of dog shit because we recognize the right and the hope that a third party will intervene in all of our health care when it comes to everything else except for this issue because, people have a moral objection to abortion because they just can't stand the thought of like, oh no, a possible, like again, possible. So a pregnancy, a possible child might die in the process. It's an unfortunate side effect.
Thompson proposes that while a third person is within their right to object to intervene, they cannot prevent the woman from acting. Thompson explains this via the expanding child. Say that you're trapped in a tiny house with a rapidly expanding child. If nothing is done, you will be crushed to death in a matter of minutes. The child, on the other hand, will be fine. He'll be hurt, but in the end, he'll burst out the door.
Now it's big baby.
While a third person outside the house can refuse to choose between you and the child, both innocent parties, this doesn't mean you can't act in self-defense and attack the child to save your own life.
Wait, what? Yeah, so it's like, oh, you can kill the child now to prevent them from getting too big and killing you. I see the little, analogy they're drawing here. What I don't like about this, though, I'll tell you what I don't like about this. If you're in an expanding house, right? You're in a house, the child is not attached to you, so why can't you escape the house through some other way? Like, wouldn't you say that the idea of like, oh, you have to murder them to like stop them from expanding or whatever? That's kind of weird. Like, you wouldn't say that somebody ought to be, stop fucking feeding him. You don't think that somebody ought to be like maybe morally obligated to try like all the other options first? And if this ends up being like the only way to do it, like this is what we have to go with. Like, I don't really see how this is like a slam dunk on this point.
This hypothetical isn't much different from fatal pregnancies, Thompson argues.
It's not much different. It is. The baby's not attached to her. She can walk the fuck away wherever she wants to.
Prevent a woman from getting a life-saving abortion would be to insist she wait passively for death within her own home.
No, I say she can't escape. Fucking walk out the door. It's a glass house.
The right to life allegedly prohibits abortion, yet the term is never defined. Thompson proposes two common definitions for right to life. One,
look,
that
they're
a person
drawing
be
too.
given at the very
This
least
person sucks,
the
so
bare
like me.
necessities needed to survive. Or two, that it is impermissible to kill a person.
Right to life, okay. So they have a right to bare necessities, and we shouldn't kill them. Hey, that's pretty dope, right? Like, I'm feeling like suddenly like some socialist vibes here, right? Like, I think we all deserve to have some bare necessities and not to be killed. That sounds pretty good.
However, both these functional meanings break down upon closer inspection.
What?
It's
no,
easy
how?
to find.
How? This is an ought. You fucking liar. They break down as soon as you look at them. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have to, right? That's a normative claim. Ought we have bare necessities provided for us, and ought we not kill each other? You can't. Well, let's see what she says.
In the second definition, most would amend the statement by clarifying that one should not unjustly kill another.
Yeah, but we would have to define that as murder, right? So we should not murder one another. And quite frankly, like, this is a huge problem that a lot of people will say, like, pacifists and stuff like that. Well, you should never kill someone. It's like, nobody agrees with that. I wonder if right to life will be applied to healthcare in the States. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand why conservatives specifically, at least in America, want to say that only unborn people ought to have like healthcare or a right to life.
However, there's also a flaw with insisting that a person's right to life entitles them to whatever they need to survive. namely one that entitles them to something they do not have the right to. For example, let's say that I am terminally ill, and the only thing that can save me from death is the touch of President Barack Obama's hand upon my brow.
What?
While it would be nice of him to do so, no one would argue that I have a right to have President Obama flown to my hospital room to bestow upon me his healing touch.
Look, Obama was like, he was all right, but I can't make him into like some kind of holy figure. Like, if he lays his hand on you, it will heal you. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Likewise, Thompson argues no one can have a right to someone else's body unless they are freely given that right by said individual.
Now, wait. Okay, hold on. Let's go back for 1 second. All right. So I like this is such a straw man here. So you're saying that no one can have a right to someone else's body unless they are freely given that right by said individual. That's what I said with consent at the very beginning of this horse shit. But let's think about this for a second. So whenever we have, I need you, Barry. So whenever we have like Obama himself must touch you, that's not the case. Like, come on now. When we're talking about like a societal level, it's not like one person can go around and like touch like all the homeless people and heal them, but through a collective tax effort and like programs and that kind of stuff, we could provide housing for them, we could provide shelter for them, we could provide food and everything else. Like, this is like such a straw man where you say like, well, because we can't have one person go around and personally take care of every single other person, then we can't justify the idea of bare necessities being met. That's a load of horseshit.
Given that right by said individual. Therefore, abortion would be permissible in cases where the pregnancy would be fatal or the woman did not voluntarily grant the fetus the use of her body.
Wait, so that's what I said. So my whole argument is that it's not voluntary use, right? So then you ought to be able to abort the fetus. All right, so I understand that's okay. What do you think is going to be the requirement to make it wrong, like to ban it?
Just because abortion is permissible in these cases does not mean that it's permissible in every case.
What? Okay, wait, now hold on. If you said that if the woman does not consent, and I sorry I keep saying woman, it's just like fucking race that way. But it's if someone that could get pregnant, all right, if they have a fetus growing inside of them, and you're saying that the fetus, like the abortion is okay if that person does not grant the fetus like consent to be there, then that's okay. But now you're saying that but abortion is not acceptable in every case. What other case, like I'm curious, what are the outliers of even just that very like narrow definition right there? Like, are you saying that we can't just like go around aborting, like giving people abortions that don't consent to it? Like, I think no one disagrees with that. Like, everyone is like, yeah, if somebody doesn't want to have an abortion, you shouldn't force them to have one, right? Like, who the fuck is saying that we should do that? Besides the Trump administration.
This article is still relevant as the debate over abortion continues. Her paper is remembered and cited today because of her vivid and succinct comparisons and hypotheticals used to make her points. Furthermore, she brought attention to a previously ignored logical fact.
Bodily autonomy.
Abortion is discussed not only morally, but legally as well.
Are they going to talk about the violinist?
As Thompson points out, excluding actively harming another, the United States has no law insisting that people be minimally decent to each other. For example, 38 people witnessed Kitty Genevieve's murder, yet they did nothing, not even call the police.
Yeah, you don't. All right, there's no law that says you have to be nice. Like, there's nothing stopping you from being an asshole. There's nothing wrong with being an ass, other than like, I mean, people are gonna hate you because you're being a dick. But, so all right.
And they faced no legal punishment for their inaction.
Sure, you're not required to act.
Criminalizing abortion forces women to not only be minimally decent, but good Samaritans. Thompson brings up this point to show the disconnect and gross injustice she sees in current law. It's worth noting that, rather than give a simple conclusion that abortion is either always wrong or always permissible, she gives a nuanced answer.
No, it's always permissible.
In her words, there may well be cases in which carrying the child to term requires only minimally decent Samaritanism of the mother, and this is a standard we must not fall below.
No, No, your own fucking, like, I gotta hate this because it's like, we're going to provide such a nuanced take on this. This isn't a nuanced take. This is completely contradictory because you can't say, like, not even 40 seconds ago in your video that if the woman, if the person that has the child does not consent to allowing that fetus to grow in them, then it's okay for them to have an abortion. You can't spin right around and now say there may be cases in which carrying the child to term requires only minimally decent Samaritanism of the mother, and this is a standard we must not follow. No, fuck that. All right? Because when you're saying minimally decent Samaritanism, like, get out of here. Every single pregnancy could risk in death of the mother. It still happens. It's always possible. Right? This is like such an annoying thing because it's like it will irreparably change the pregnant person's body. It can damage their body. It can cause, like, their body will change in ways that they can never revert back to, and will risk their life upon delivery. And you're still going to sit here and say, like, well, it's minimally decent to carry it. No, it's not. Fuck you.
Furthermore, while abortion can be permissible, Thompson does not argue that the mother has.
All right. Again, so with the right to remove the fetus is not a right to kill the fetus. So
has a right to kill the unborn child. While
this
removing the fetus from the woman's body means death for the fetus, equating the right of removal with the right to kill is a mistake.
Yeah,
if by some miracle the fetus lives, or if it ever becomes possible to remove fetuses alive from pregnant women via scientific advancement, it should be granted the opportunity to live.
No, not necessarily. We can already do it.
Now it's your turn to think further. What does the right to life mean to you? Can you find any flaws when trying to apply your definition?
Yes. Yes, I can. I can. Do y'all want to do some drawing? Do y'all want to do another drawing? Because I thought they were going to talk about the violinist dilemma in here, and they didn't bring it up, surprisingly, because this is like one of the things that Judith Thompson is like very known for. In that paper, A Defense of Abortion is the paper that she penned. And in there, she gave a scenario about a violinist, which was all about, like, bodily autonomy and everything else. And they said, oh, if there's any flaws here, like, maybe you could think of them for yourself. What is your take on abortion? Do y'all think that abortion is wrong? Is that something that we should avoid engaging in? Let's go back to the little paper right here. We're going to erase some stuff, right? And then we're going to go over all of this again. We're going to talk about abortion and maybe get into the violinist. Has anybody heard of the violinist? Goodbye, Bible. Look, I just destroyed a Bible. All right, so when they're saying that there is no way, like, only a miracle if you can, like, salvage a fetus, what's wrong with that? Right away, like, immediately. Well, it's so funny that you might ask that question. A C-section is the termination of a pregnancy, and that's all that, like, a pregnancy at the end ends in termination, no matter what. So the person that is pregnant will no longer be pregnant. Whether the fetus survives or not is a totally different story. Now, on one hand, if you have a C-section is considered an abortion. So, because it's the termination of a pregnancy, it does not, like, involve the death of the fetus necessarily. So, if you were born via C-section, I mean, congratulations, you survived an abortion, right? So you would be like the mythological creature here. So we have, like, C-section already, where they'll say, oh, well, you can't survive being aborted. Yes, you can. It's called C-section. Happens all the fucking time. So besides that, we have the violinist scenario, right? And in the... Why are you doing that? There we go. So in the violinist scenario, they basically give the dilemma like this. They say that, you basically, like, get knocked out and you wake up. And when you wake up, you are tied. And I don't, like, it's so funny. This is so stupid. Like, you are tied to a world famous violinist. And this violinist has some rare condition or whatever else that would require someone's body, like yours, to filter their blood, their respiratory system, whatever else. They're all hooked up to you with the machine or whatever else. And you're told that this violinist is famous and he's very talented and he's loved by all these people. He's ultra wealthy and he will like compensate you if you just, you know, stay attached to him or whatever else. But you're also told that even though they abducted you and put you there in the first place, that they will not stop you from unplugging yourself and walking away, even though it will result in the death of the violinist. That's the dilemma. They said, what should you do? Because they're trying to like make this analogous to pregnancy. And I have so many problems with this. Well, it says, guess what? The biological effects of pregnancy negates minimally deficient. Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you understand. We're on the same page in this 100%. Like the risk to your body and this stuff, the damage that can be done, and the risk of death at delivery. No, fuck that. There is no such thing as a minimally decent like pregnancy. Get out of here. There's always like the possibility of some complications. But in the violence scenario right here, right? I would argue that because they did not get your consent before they hooked you up to this fucking person, you have within your rights of your bodily autonomy to pull yourself off of this person, disconnect everything, and walk the fuck away. And if it results in their death, then fucking so be it. Because we don't want to live in a society where, because I want to point out, they set this up to say like this person's talented and they're wealthy and they will pay you. The problem is, I think that our society would be a worse society if at any moment that you could be abducted by some rich person, hooked up or whatever, or organ taken from you to donate to them. But don't worry, they'll compensate you back. We don't want to live in a world where that can randomly happen to people. That's why the violinist scenario is like absolutely ridiculous. Let's see. Deadpan says, I think abortion is necessary sometimes. I also think if someone is pro-life, most of the time they just don't care about the person at all after they are born. I'm definitely pro-choice. Well, absolutely. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Like when I was taking a shot at them of saying that, well, if we're, you know, socialist, I don't see why, if we're saying that people have a right to like basic necessities from the conservative side, why does that end as soon as they're born? It's so weird. It's like we must give them everything that they need when they're existing as like just a zygote or whatever, versus like once they're actually born, it's like, well, nobody actually like really gives a shit about them anymore. Also, history shown awful it is for women when abortion is illegal. It's never good. Well, yeah, absolutely. They're still going to get abortions. It's just so they're going to try various methods or like unsafe ways or whatever else. But in the violence scenario, I think you can pull yourself apart from this person, no problem. My other problem with this, with the abortion argument and bodily autonomy, I'll draw it over here just so that we can all like take a look at this, because this is one of those things that absolutely like I don't see. There is a parallel here with the violinist, but I think it's a lot like you can see it a lot better. I guess I should have just fucking like wiped out the whole screen. Oh well. So in one scenario, you have the pregnant woman, right? Pregnant person. So you have like a child, fetus, whatever, like growing inside of them, right? And they'll say, well, because that child got put there by like their actions or what the fuck else, they have to now like support this person. Well, I have a question similar. So there's two different scenarios I have right here. What if you have like somebody walk up to you that is like in dire need of care, and they just like hook a cord up to you? That's like the violinist, right? And the other one would be, what if you got into a car accident and it was your fault, and when you woke up in the hospital, you were connected to this person over here that is the, you know, victim of the car accident? Is that ethically okay? Would we say like we should do that? Well, but there's no difference if you think about it between like either one of these, because if this person over here that has this fetus inside of them didn't consent to that child getting there and doesn't consent for them to be there, and then on the other side, it's like, even though it's your fault that you got into a car accident, it's your fault this person is injured and they need life-saving care, whatever else, and they've decided that they're going to hook you up to them and make you sit there for however long, and you might end up getting diabetes or kidney failure, whatever else, due to the fact that, you know, your body's not meant to like support like another full-grown adult. Well, it's like, well, who cares? Like, if you're saying that this person ought to be forced to carry that child against their will. Then that same logic would apply the opposite direction. And they'd say, well, it's still your responsibility that you got into a wreck. So this is now you have to support this person. Deadpan says, I think it was John Oliver who talked about a woman who was in jail and didn't know she was pregnant and had a miscarriage and custody in the state. Oh my God. One of the trials of murder for the miscarriage. What a fucking joke. Like, what is this fucking... Let's see here. All right. So that covers my take on abortion. And I know it's a very contentious subject. People get so fucking pissed when you talk about abortion. And Debhan says, although I saw that a year ago, so I might be getting it wrong. No. I don't doubt that that's correct. And here's why. There are states right now trying to pass laws that will charge a person that is pregnant. It will make it a misdemeanor for them to no longer be pregnant. And that is like not a joke at all. So it ends up being this whole thing where you're just like really? So nothing like if they have a miscarriage for any reason, by accident, whatever, they can still be charged with a crime. And that's a problem with making it so that you're saying that, oh, you can't have an abortion or whatever else, like under any circumstances. Most people make exceptions for like incest or rape for whatever reason. I don't understand this. Like, if you're saying that it's not about bodily autonomy and you're saying that a woman or a person that is pregnant ought not be able to have access to an abortion whenever they want it because it's their consent, but you're saying that, it is okay to terminate the pregnancy if they are a victim of incest or rape. It's like, well, you just have an inconsistent standard. Like, you're just saying that there are some things that you would be okay with them aborting and other things that you wouldn't be okay with, which just, again, leads to a like hypocritical take on it. It's like, why not just say that abortion, if the person that's pregnant does not want to be pregnant, then that is fine. I think that wraps up that segment. Like I said, a lot of people on TikTok and stuff have been covering this, so hopefully some people see this. I don't know, like I had problems with Destiny's take, but maybe he'll somehow see this. Who knows? Let's move on to Matt Walsh. So Matt Walsh is a piece of shit. He's a transphobe. He like actively like works against like any type of like LGBT progress you can think of. This guy is like a really, really, really awful human being. I mean, like, just the worst. But he got particularly upset like a couple weeks ago over Blue's Clues and the fact that they decided to celebrate diversity.
Not to idealize the past. The world during my childhood certainly wasn't perfect. The media we consumed at the time wasn't perfect either. But one thing I do remember is that children's shows were, broadly speaking, shows for children.
Yeah, well, it says, I found it. It's California. Women's child was stillborn. They said the child's death was attributed to her amphetamine addiction. Yeah, that's fucked. Deadpan says, Matt Walsh looks like he's about to scold me for... Oh, yeah, that's right.
They had childish themes and ideas and plots. The moral at the end of every story was always something like, sharing is good, or hey, learning is fun. This all made a lot of sense. The show Blue's Clues was a little bit after my time. It debuted when I was in middle school, I think, if I remember correctly. But my younger siblings were Blue's Clues fanatics, so I was exposed to the show a fair amount. During a typical episode, Blue, the cartoon dog, would decide that he wanted to, make puppets out of construction paper or something, and then he discovered that his scissors are missing. And with the help of his human friend Steve and the children watching at home, Blue would search around the house for his scissors. And then he would eventually find the scissors, and that would be the end of the episode.
Okay.
Suspense, drama, sorrow, redemption. The show had it all. Or at least it had enough for the preschoolers in the audience. Those preschoolers, they don't need much from their entertainment.
Well, what
Innocent and simple should be the name of the game. And that's what many children's shows used to be. That's what Blue's Clues used to be. But not anymore. Like so many other forms of child entertainment, Blue's Clues went from looking for his scissors to this.
Families marching one by one, hurrah!
Hey, that's my people. That's my people. There they are. That's them, and they're on Blue's Clues. We made it, y'all. We got on a programming for kids. Finally, it is safe to be gay even when you're a child. No more parents are like throwing their kids out for being gay. No more kids are throwing their kids throwing their parents out. No more parents are throwing children out for being trans. None of this stuff. It's all just up from here.
Hurrah! Families
yeah. Oh my God. Matt Walsh isn't even 30 yet. He sounds 50. Lilith, you have no fucking idea how tired I am. Like, I am so tired, and I'm 35. And Matt, like when I saw Matt, I thought Walsh is probably like 20 years older than me, 15 years older than me. I had no fucking idea. Like, it looks like he dyes his hair and everything. Like, he must have gone gray from like being a dick, like real early. Deadpan, I thought Matt was going to make a scissoring joke there, to be honest.
Marching one by one,
a little
hurrah,
spicy.
Hurrah! This family has two mommies. They love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade.
It's all catchy. I like
Families
it.
marching 2 by 2, hurrah!
Yeah.
Hurrah! Families marching 2 by 2, hurrah! Hurrah!
I'm just saying that all the parents that I knew growing up would have lost their fucking minds if this had been put on any kind of programming that was anywhere like near me or any of the other kids that I was growing up with. Like, we have come as a society, we've come pretty far in order for this to be like on like children's programming and not even like Adult Swim or whatever else. Deadpan says it's very cool to see LGBTQ represent. Oh, I know. Like, unironically, no joke. This is really awesome. I'm really fucking glad to see this because like, just seeing programming, like I recently read a superhero story, and it's like I'm going to try not to get emotional here, but it's so sad because it was about a like trans superhero, and it was like I've never read a story that was about a like trans superhero before, and it was like, you know, it was that realization. It's like I'm 35 and I've never read a story that has a character in it that's like me. So it was like kind of, you know, one of those like really like shocking revelations, and really like, I don't know, it was very bittersweet.
This family has two daddies. They love each other so proudly, and they
I'm
all
dressed for a
go
parade.
marching in the big parade. Come on, friends! Families marching 3 by 3, hurrah! Hurrah!
Chief says this cartoon is pretty
Families
cute. I
marching
agree.
3 by 3, hurrah!
And they got dolphins. Let's see here. Deadpan says they wouldn't even let Harley Quinn be bisexual on the Batman the MA series back in the 90s. Oh, yeah, I know. Like, nothing. Lilith says conservatives lose their minds when LGBT is normalized. Yeah, the first LGBT stuff that I ever saw on TV, like, besides, like, Jerry Springer and shit to make us, like, look like as like, freakish as possible, was, I think, it was, dramas. Yeah, there was, like, it was like a women's network television or whatever when I was growing up. It was, like, I don't remember what the channel's called. Maybe one of y'all will. It was like a, you know, women's network or whatever, where they have like dramas and stuff. And every now and then they'd have like a gay character, a gay teen or something. It was like a tragedy. And all of them were always ended like terribly. It was like never this happy, you know, it was like boys don't cry type stuff.
These papas are non-binary. They love each other so proudly, and they all go marching in the big parade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see an ad. Oh no, stop it. Stop it. Ruin everything. Gotta love capitalism. Can't even enjoy a gay parade. Rainbow capitalism right here happening in real time.
Yes, a non-binary disabled dolphin. And I hope you noticed the Black Lives Matter fist on the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just, oh, guys, he made a joke. He's like, oh, it's a non-binary disabled. Oh, it's so funny. What's wrong with that? It's a fucking cartoon. Let them be who they want to be, right?
Microphones. They really jammed it all.
Yeah, my Chief says my first show is Queer Eye. Yeah, I have the whole like collection. Like, I love that shit.
All in there. Yes, that is a Pride Parade featured on a recent episode of the show Blue's Clues. A show which, again, is targeted specifically at children aged 3 to 5.
Yeah, to let them know that it's okay to be gay, and that, you know, if they grow up and they have any types of, you know, attractions like this, or like there are people like this that exist in the world, and we all have a lot of fun. It's very colorful. We're all good people. There's, you know, it's very good to teach people that there are like other people in the world besides just like your parents as you grow up. Like, expand your fucking horizons and stuff. Lilith says, Queer Folk came out, and I binge watched that show. Oh yeah, Deadpan says, I was talking to a friend and I realized they never even taught us the word transgender or anything about trans people in school. Yeah, absolutely. So like, no joke. I grew up in backwoods Alabama in the South. Our sex education was like embarrassingly bad. They were teaching abstinence unironically. And I remember like we were in a class and they had like separated the boys and the girls, and they're like watching the video or whatever on like, this is what happens to a, you know, man's body or whatever. And they were doing the whole thing. They literally had a gay joke in the middle of the video, like that they were showing us. Like, there's one of the characters that's like, you know, like, hey, Bobby, like, you wouldn't happen to be attracted to other boys, would you? And they give him like the look because he's like looking at like, like runners that are running by or whatever, some fucking shit like this. And literally my teacher stopped the video and was like, if anybody in the class feels this way, I want you to raise your hand right now. And I was just like glancing around. I was like, fuck you. Like, I'm not going to raise my hand here. Like, I know exactly, like, are you serious? And it's like, I knew at the time that I was like, you know, I like, gender didn't really matter to me for attraction. I'm pan. So I was like, I care way more. Like, I have to be like romantically attracted to somebody. I'd like to have some type of connection with them before I feel any other attraction. But gender is not like one of those things. I don't give a fuck about your gender. Like be who you want to be. Like, everyone is cool, you know? Like, I can't even imagine if I had been dumb enough to be like, oh yeah, I like, you know, like, I like everything, to see like what would have happened to me. Actually, I know what would have happened to me.
The person singing is a man named Andrew Levitt, who goes by Nina West when he's on stage as a drag queen.
Oh God. At first I thought he like was dead naming a trans woman. I was like, you piece of shit. But if they're a drag queen, okay. Let's see here. Liz says, yeah, go ahead and narc on yourself. Yeah, I know, right? It's like, hey, the cops want to know, like, y'all should be doing drugs. And if anybody here has drugs, raise your hand.
That's apparently not the first time that Blue's Clues has delved into LGBT propaganda. They recently released a video featuring young children talking about the different...
So it's LGBT propaganda when we just have like Blue's Clues or something, have a fucking Pride Parade episode or whatever, where it's like, oh, look, there's some cute colors and a little song or whatever. But it's not fucking propaganda when people like you, like conservatives, make these fucking like little kids books where it's like, you know, fucking David and Goliath or whatever else, where they fucking... you know, whitewash what the story actually says, where it's like, oh, in the story, is David going to go and cut off the foreskins of like 200 Philistines so he can fucking like, you know, be close to the king? No, they're not going to tell you that. Instead, they're going to be like, oh, well, David defeated Goliath in a fight. That's not like, they will like, there's no age that's too early to tell kids about Jonah and the whale or other biblical stories, the Tower of Babel. There's like entire industries of like that make like children's books and children's film and TV shows for Christian propaganda, conservative propaganda all fucking day. But God forbid LGBT people have one episode and one fucking kids show where they're like, oh, there's just a gay parade. Not that they're like telling a moral story about it. Not that they're sitting here telling you to be gay or anything like that. They just exist. And that's too fucking much for these people. Fuck. And we're the snowflakes.
Different pride flags and what they mean. There are, of course, many pride flags that signify many different sexual proclivities. The parade segment we just watched goes on for a while, listing many of them, starting with gay and lesbian, and then, as you saw, disabled, non-binary dolphins.
But disabled is not a sexuality, you fucking idiot. I know you keep saying, oh, and then there's like disabled, non-binary, blah, 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 blah. It's like, look, you're being like, I get it, that you're like, oh, well, y'all just get so like upset or whatever whenever people are being like, you know, that's ableist or whatever. It absolutely, like, yes, it is. It's not funny. You're just being a fucking asshole again. And you're conflating. It's not that you're saying like, oh, there's some confusion with like, like he doesn't understand the difference between sex and gender or sexuality and gender, which, I mean, gender identity, absolutely. I guarantee he doesn't fucking understand these things. But when he keeps saying like he has so in the disability part too, it's like, you just can't fucking help. And this is why I said, like, conservatives, there is no, like, there's no low where they won't punch. Like, there's no bar that's too low for them to punch under it to try and like hurt LGBT communities, even if they are literally punching down at children.
And then into trans and beyond. Let's watch a little more just to see.
Yeah, I guess he also wouldn't know that like a lot of non-binary people also identify that's also a trans identity. Dumb fuck.
See how far this actually goes.
Families marching 6 by 6, hurrah, hurrah.
Yeah, look,
families marching 6 by 6, hurrah, hurrah.
There's a little
Ace, Bi, and Pan
asexual.
Grown-ups, you see,
Yeah.
can love each other
Hey,
so
Ace,
proudly,
that's like
and they
me.
all go marching in the big parade. Oh yeah!
Yay.
Ace, Bi, and Pan.
Yeah.
Sound like
I'm
the
all
names
three
of
those.
members of a boy band or something. But no, Ace, Bi, and Pan, because it's important that 3-year-olds be taught about pansexuals.
Oh,
By the way,
he's
if you're
so
wondering
mad.
what ace means, I had to look that up.
Yeah.
That's a term used for asexuals.
Asexual. Yeah.
Now, if
yeah.
you're wondering why ace...
It's an umbrella term, you dipshit. It's an umbrella term. There's more than one, like, it's not just one thing, right? There's like asexuality is a gradient. There are some people that will identify themselves as like gray A. There are some people that identify themselves as like demisexual or demi-romantic. Like there's all sorts of things within it. It's not just one fucking thing. But of course, he's like, well, I had to Google that word. And I'm like, too bad you didn't read about it, I guess.
Asexuals, that is people who experience no sexual attraction at all, are included in a community of people who identify themselves by their attraction to other people, and why anyone would be proud of not being attracted to other humans anyway.
It's because that's considered a different sexuality than like is outside of the norm. Whenever you're talking about a society that has like everything's like heterosexual, whatever, whenever somebody says, hey, I don't really feel like any attraction to people like not sexually, like I just don't really like experience it that way, or they experience it lesser or whatever else to a lesser degree, it's just like y'all would have a problem with that. Y'all would say, oh, there's something wrong with that person. What's wrong with them? You know, blah, 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 blah. So they have a place within our community. Why do you get so fucking mad about diversity or people that like feel differently than you? It's like, y'all are so fucking weird. You're like, oh, the left can't stand being challenged on any of these opinions or people having different ideas. But y'all are the ones, the right, the conservatives are the ones. They're like, everybody must be the same manufactured fucking Tin Man and fucking Barbie doll, replicate over and over and over and over. And there's only one path through your fucking life for you to choose. One sexuality. Y'all are fucking ridiculous. And I'm the one wearing a fucking Mardi Gras outfit. Deadpan. Because society makes everything about attraction, especially me. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Sex sells, right? You want to sell something? Throw like a person in a bikini on there, or throw like a muscle dude with like ripped fucking 200-pack abs and everything else.
Well, that I can't really explain. All I can say is that the LGBT umbrella has become more like a mushroom, growing and growing until it has reached now a point where it's defined not by what it is, but by what it isn't. The only similarity between an asexual, someone who isn't attracted to anybody, and a pansexual, someone who's attracted to everybody, is that neither are heterosexual.
Yeah, whoa, he got a portion of it, right? It's exactly. If you are not a cis hetero person, especially with trying sexuality, if you're not heterosexual, if you're just outside of that like norm, then you're LGBT somehow. Jeeve says, and romance is a common B plot to everything, it seems. Yeah, oh yeah. There's always like gotta be a romance. But hey, I am a romantic at heart, right? Deadpan, I bet Matt doesn't even realize ace people can be straight too. Oh, I know. Like that, and that's like I had a conversation with my mom like not too long ago, and she was basically like, it's been like decades since she's had a date with anyone. And she just like had kind of mentioned whatever that she just doesn't feel that way, and like she's always like felt like forced into it or whatever else. And I started explaining to her like what, and like talking with her, and I realized that she's ace, and she just never knew it. Like, and I felt like legitimately, despite like the childhood trauma and everything else, I felt bad for not understanding that. And I was like, yeah, she actively votes against the LGBT community every chance that she gets, and she's
the point of pride for LGBT people these days seems to simply be that they aren't straight. It's not a gay pride parade. It's a not straight parade.
No, that's not even true. You can show up, just don't be a dick. If you want to be an ally, you can say like, look, as long as you're not gonna be a bigot, and as long as you don't come there and scream that we're gonna go to hell or whatever else, you can show up to pride too. Even as a hetero person, you've got a place there too. Just don't be an asshole.
It's all about what you aren't. It's not really about what you are. Now, this is an important fact to keep in mind, especially as we enter into what has now been deemed Pride Month. used to be, you had a one part of a day, a Pride Parade, and then it was Pride Day, and then it was a week, and now it's Pride Month. Many corporations and institutions will go out of their way this month, even more than they do every other month, to push this agenda onto the public and especially onto kids. Kellogg's, for example, recently unveiled a Pride cereal developed in association with the gay activist group GLAAD. The marketing campaign declares that boxes are for cereal, not people.
All right, so first of all, it's rainbow capitalism, and his problem here is not necessarily with pride or whatever else, although he, it's like, oh, that's got to be the issue. No, the actual issue is just the fact that fucking corporations will sell anything to anyone that will listen, and they absolutely will virtue sell anything from Black Lives Matter to pride or whatever else if they think it will help them sell a product or make a quick buck. That's a problem with capitalism. That is not a problem explicit with the LGBT community. Let's see here. Jeeves says there's a later float about allies at Pride in the original cartoon. Yeah, but he's going to skip that because he doesn't want people to even know. It's like, no. It's defined by what you aren't, not what you are. And if you aren't one of them, then you got to stay the fuck out. And that's not the case. And he's also going to talk about boxes here for a second. And this is he doesn't understand what the fuck it even means to put something in a box or to be thought of as in a box. He doesn't get it.
And on the side of the box, there's a list of pronouns with a couple of blank spaces so that kids can fill in their own pronouns if they want. Ironically, they say boxes are for cereal, not people, and then invite children to literally put themselves into a box.
They're putting themselves on a box, Matt. And do you know what the box represents? What do you think? Do you think they literally mean you should put your identity in a box? Is that what you took away from there? I get that, this guy is, really fucking dumb. But, seriously, it's metaphorical. The human mind, anytime that we, examine we get any information, we observe anything, we not only are taking, account of, what the thing is to us, we also categorize it in our minds. Philosophically, we generate categories. Even if there are no categories, we will generate some in our mind to sort things to. Is that a box? No, it's a fucking category. If you think that your identity goes in a box, or that to define someone's identity is to put them into a box, you're just missing this concept. It's not a box, it's a category. Now you could say well, what's the difference? Because a box is something it's contained in this thing, right? Versus a category where you're this is what this thing is, and these are all the listings of what makes up this thing, and then as new information comes in or goes out, you can just interchangeably move this stuff. There's nothing saying that you have to stay in this fucking box. It is a physical thing. No, it's not. It is a concept. And even if you want to deny it and you say, well, I don't fit in any of these categories, you absolutely do. Everything. Every time you list an opinion about something, you're categorizing yourself or sorting yourself into something else. And if your goal is to not be able to be categorized, that just means that you have an interest in being incoherent, because you're you will not hold consistent positions. I find that the right all the time, when I argue to conservatives in real life, they're don't try to put me in a box, don't give me labels, because if you give me labels, then I'll have to defend those positions, or you might give me labels that don't actually belong to me or that don't apply to me, which is absolutely true. That can happen too. I'm a trans woman, for instance. So if somebody gives me a label male or whatever, that label does not actually apply to me. So that's just a miscategorization.
Indeed, the LGBT movement is all about boxes. It's all about obsessively identifying and labeling people.
It's about communicating your identity to other people so that they know not only who you would possibly be attracted to, but interests that you might have, how you would like to be addressed, how you would like people to approach you, and then also to help people understand why you are expressing yourself in certain ways. That's what it's about. It's about communication and being fair to one another and treating each other decently. It's not necessarily about putting someone in a fucking cardboard box.
The last thing they want is for children to be free and unencumbered, able to explore the world, figure themselves out. From a very young age, they say to the kids, here are the labels. Now pick one for yourself.
No, that's you. Where your side says that, you know, you must be a Christian, you gotta be, you know, being white is good. The right has their own little id poll that they like to pull from, and then say like, oh, well, when we criticize it, when we say like, hey, it's not fair that y'all just keep punching and punching and punching down on our community and like demonizing us and insinuating that we are sexual predators or whatever else, like that shit is not fucking cool. But you're like, oh, but it's us that's making these problems. It's us that's making the labels. It's us that says like you have to do this, that, or the other. When it's y'all. And not only would people like you historically ostracize people from communities, like run them out or shun them or whatever else, y'all would also like kill us if we did not conform to what you wanted. Jesus.
And assume an identity that coincides with it. Of course, they'll never be honest about any of this. The absolutely undeniable, indisputable fact, which is staring us right in the face, is that the cultural powers that be really
Oh, God. Look. Fucking Centrum. Matt Walsh, why are you pushing this on us?
Desperately want your kid to be gay or trans or some variation thereof.
No, we want them to be themselves. That's it, you dipshit. All right? All we're saying is that they have a right to pursue their own identity and express themselves however they want to be expressed. And people like you should not have a right to put a boot on them and force them to be somebody that they aren't. That's it. We're like, hey, we should have love and understanding for each other. We should communicate with one another, and like we ought to let each other live our lives however we want to live and address each other how we want to be addressed. When instead we have people like you saying, no, the fuck you don't, you better not, or else.
And they are going to do what they can to make that happen.
Just giving you the option.
But they won't admit it. Instead, they'll tell you that all of this, pride parades and pansexuals in schools, in shows for 3-year-olds, non-binary pronouns on cereal boxes, etc. All of this is about inviting kids to be themselves, they'll say.
Yeah, it's about, hey, I just said that. He does get
inviting the 3-year-olds who are already trans or gay or pansexual to simply come out and live their authentic truth.
No, see, the thing is that you're just making them aware that there are people that are bi and trans or whatever else. That way, as they get older and they start exploring their identity and they start exploring those aspects of themselves, like as they like enter puberty or right before puberty, if they're trans, they're like, oh shit, I don't like this body. I don't like what's going to happen to me. Like, can you please help me stop this process? Yeah, sure. If that's who they are and they're exploring that, at least they are aware that there are other people like them and they aren't fucking alone. You asshole.
Now, if you're still buying that line, then you may be a hopeless case. I don't know what to tell you. I can't force oblivious people to use their brains if they've gotten so comfortable living without them. But for everybody else, the truth should be clear by now. This, of course, has nothing to do with inviting kids to be who they are.
Hate LGBT
there
people?
Are no transgender 3-year-olds or bisexual 3-year-olds.
You just don't know yet. All right, if I said there are no cis 3-year-olds or 5-year-olds, you don't know if that 3-year-old or that 5-year-old, if it's like what you would think of as somebody who's like male presenting, you don't know necessarily what their gender identity is or what it will become because they don't know yet. Just like you don't know what their sexual attraction is going to be as they get older. You're pretending. This is the whole problem with cis heteronormativity, okay? The problem is you assume that you're the default and you're going to push all this media and everything else on them. It's not a problem for kids to watch cartoon shows where people have like, you have a little boy that has like a girlfriend or whatever. I remember growing up, like all the time, when I was a male presenting child, if I was hanging out, like running around playing tag or whatever with a girl, some adult would come and be like, is that your girlfriend or whatever else? And say, oh, it's so cute, haha. Or like people put like, you know, lady killer on like little boy shirts and stuff like this well before they're old enough to explore their sexuality or whatever else. And you'll have no fucking problem with that. You have no problem with showing like heterosexual couples kissing and like public television shows and stuff like that. That doesn't bother me. But the way that people like Matt Walsh talk, you would think that we would have a meltdown over, oh my gosh, you can't show any kind of sexuality. You can't show like people being happy together, being married together, whatever else. It's y'all that have a problem with showing any kind of display that goes against what you consider a cis heteronormative society. And that's why you're making a big fucking deal about this. It's not because of the actual content of like what you're communicating to these kids. It's the fact that you don't want them to know that there are people that are different than their parents or like whatever you think is the cis heteronormative fucking storyline that you're trying to write out. God.
Or pansexual 3-year-olds. 3-year-olds are not concerned with expressing their sexual identities, mostly because they don't have a sexual identity at that age.
Duh.
They're concerned mostly with eating snacks and running around without their shoes on.
How the fuck do you know what someone else's kids are interested in? Like seriously, this is the mind reading shit. I can tell you exactly what all these kids are interested in. It's like, I don't know. I think like each kid probably has their own like fucking interests, you know?
And playing with their toys. If we wanted to help them live their truth, quote unquote, that's the truth we would help them live. This hypersexualization, this incessant propagandizing is rather about introducing a new, quote, truth. It's about turning them into something that they would not otherwise be.
How do you know? It's not about turning them into something that they wouldn't be. You are a fucking, I hope, like, man, does he, like, is he a television psychic as well? And I just didn't fucking know this. Is he like a medium? Does he get like, do like dead people like whisper to him, like ghosts tell him about like the future or whatever? Like, how the fuck do you know who these kids are going to end up being?
And as we already covered, the identity that our most powerful cultural institutions want a child to adopt is a negative identity. The message to the child is simple. In a way, it's simple.
Deadpan, that was a great rant, Zoe. That's what I want to say sometimes, but I can't think of the words usually. No, it's all right. Look, like, if you knew me, like, thank you. If you knew me, like, in IRL, I mean, like, my friends and stuff, like,
they
roll their eyes at me. Like, they're like, Zoe, like, you get so mad about some stuff. It's like, it's not that, like, it's not just what, like, the idea of what they're saying that makes me so mad. It's that they're trying to demonize us while saying that we are bad just for saying that we ought to have a right to exist. And, like, children, like, I was a child at some point, and very early on, I knew that I was not like these other fucking kids. But people like him would say that it's okay for people like me to grow up in the dark, not knowing that there are whole communities out there of people like me. And that sort of thing ends up causing like a much higher suicide rate among trans people, because we do feel like so dejected and rejected from society, and that there is like no hope for us to have any type of real future, thanks to people like fucking Matt Walsh. That's why I get so frustrated with this, because it's like, I've lived that experience of saying that, you know, of feeling like I'm the only queer person in like this entire town. Or if I come out, like, when I came out as a teenager, like, it like damn near ruined my life. Like, I lost most of my friendships. One of my friends had tried to go to my job and get me fired by telling my boss and stuff that I was like queer and all this other kind of stuff. It was a really hard time.
Be who you want to be, but don't be straight.
No, you can be straight too. Just don't be an asshole.
Don't be, quote, cisgender. Don't adopt any values or worldviews or ideas that your grandparents may have held. So be whoever you want to be, just not that.
I love plenty of things that my grandparents did, right? Like, plenty of us, you know, enjoy like going fishing. And I actually enjoy like yard work and that kind of stuff. Like, I love gardening and that kind of stuff. And I would assume that, you know, my grandmother growing out in the fucking bayou probably was, you know, outside with the going fishing for crawdads and everything else. So like, don't, you know, come at me with this.
Here are your boxes. There are a lot of boxes.
Categories.
But you have to choose one, and choose it early, and find your identity and your purpose in it. That's the message.
Now,
though the people spreading that message will never be honest about it.
Now, your identity, God, I'm glad this guy's done fucking bloviating. Your identity comes from like within you. You can look outside, like externally to other people and see like, well, what are they doing or what are they like? That doesn't define necessarily who you are. And what he's trying to say is that, oh, well, these messages, like your identity only comes from outside constructed. And it's like, that's not entirely true. Like, a lot of our identity, let's see here, Debhan says, my grandpa bought me Barks root beer all the time. I still love that shit. Oh yeah, exactly. Like, there's so many things that like my dad was like one of the most supporting, like loving people like in my life the entire time that I was growing up. Like I had a great relationship with him. And it's like there are so many things like he taught me, like the curiosity and the like constant like wanting to know more and more, and even like progressive values and stuff like this. Despite where I was born, my dad was like extremely open-minded and stuff like that. And it's like I remember when I was like 10 years old, and a conversation with him, and I was like so scared to talk to him about like any of this stuff. And like he knew that, you know, I was like really struggling with stuff, but these are your parents. And I remember like I sat down with him and was like so afraid of like coming out, you know. And unfortunately I was like too cowardly too, but I was like, I was like, hey, I have something like I want to tell you, Dad, like I want to talk with you about. Then like we were quiet like for a long moment. Then he was like, I remember he looked at me and he was like, what do you want to tell me? And it's like, I was like struggling, you know, I was like tearing up and stuff like that. Then he was like, is it something to do with like, with who you are? I'm like, you know, nodding my head. He's like, who you are like inside? I'm like, yeah. And then he's like, do you want to be a woman? And I got up and walked away because I couldn't like answer that question honestly. But I look back now and like I wish I had said something, because like I don't know how different my life would have been if I could have transitioned earlier. But they knew, you know, at least they saw from an early age. They just were waiting for me to figure out that I was ready to communicate that. Which, you know, Matt Walsh would be like, oh, you just weren't indoctrinated enough to say something. It's like, motherfucker, I knew, I just couldn't bring myself to tell people. But that's Matt Walsh. Oh my God, this dude's obnoxious. So the next segment that I want to do, I might not be as I'm not going to have like, I don't think I'm going to be ranting or whatever. I don't anticipate it during the section, because this is about, as you can read, osmosis.org. They produced a little short film on sexual orientation and gender identity. Now, what's interesting is Osmosis is an organization that like produces stuff for the healthcare industry, and they're using this to like what they call the SOGI data is what they gather. And we're going to listen to what their purpose is in gathering this data and all this kind of stuff, and why they think it's important. I'm covering this because I hear people all the time talk about like, well, trans issues are not taken seriously by, you know, scientists and blah, blah, blah. Then you'll have trans advocates like myself saying like, well, every major medical institution, you know, recognizing this kind of stuff. So this is literally a group that works for healthcare organizations that put together why SOGI is important. And it also has like some helpful little like infos, graphics, that kind of stuff that I do want to look at. So let's look at it and have some fun with that.
In recent years, healthcare centers...
We're actually going to like learn something, right? Like if you're watch this video and you're curious about trans people, or you don't really know about us or whatever, you can watch this to get some helpful information. I've made other videos on it as well. Of course, I make a lot of trans content.
Have started understanding the importance of incorporating sexual orientation and gender identity.
Yeah, they just now started
in their medical records.
Recognizing
Traditionally,
why it's important.
one's assigned sex at birth is their biological sex, which depends on their sex chromosomes.
A lot of
them don't. If they have a Y chromosome, their biological sex is male. If they have two X chromosomes, their biological sex is female.
Not based.
However, things aren't that simple. For example, a person could have a Y chromosome, but they're missing specific genes that encode for specific male characteristics. So even though they're chromosomally male, they appear as what is stereotypically described as female. So you're thinking biological sex can be linked back to genes, right?
Yeah, better get that.
Well, things get even more complicated.
Better get that genetic test.
Some genes get expressed at high levels and others at low levels. So a person may have genes that express a high level of testosterone and little or no estrogen or progesterone, or vice versa. Finally, hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone bind to receptors, and some people may have lots of receptors that can easily bind to hormones, whereas others may have very few receptors.
Yeah, so that would mean that you'd be more sensitive or less sensitive to hormones. And what I thought was kind of interesting is that since I've been on like HRT and stuff like that, like my body is like very, very sensitive to like anti-androgens. So like my testosterone level is like almost non-existent. I mean, like the first month that I was on Spiro, I went from having like my T levels was like the lowest that you would expect in a biological male, like maybe like a few points above it. And then the next month it was like 15 points or something like that. It was like below the average of like a cis woman. So yeah, how sensitive you are to hormones like really, really can make a difference for you.
In many cases, these people are intersex individuals whose bodies do not fit into the standard definition of male or female.
Yeah, now I did actually have a genetic test. I am not intersex. I'm just very sensitive to HRT.
The bottom line is that biology is messy, and like most things, biological sex exists on a spectrum. Now, separate from the biological construct of sex is gender identity and gender expression.
Yeah.
Gender identity is a person's own sense of their gender, and gender expression is how they present themselves to the world.
Yeah, now, so what's interesting is, like, you have, like, they say, like, there's a little triangle, right? We'll just say, like, whenever you're thinking about, like, gender and that kind of stuff, on the little triangle that we have, on one end of that triangle, you see like there's the biological component. That's like your biological information. Like it's probably the least important. On one of the other ends of that triangle, you would have which may have of social constructionism. That's where you would think of as like, your internal like model of your gender, and you base that on like internally versus also what you see people expressing externally. Then the last part of that would be like, at least as far as like Judith Butler was concerned, was performativity. And that is what I would think is what they're referring to as like gender expression.
Many people identify as either male
you're having
or
an
woman.
AW right now?
But
Cheers.
there are also various types of non-binary gender, or gender identities that lie outside of the man-woman dichotomy. For example, someone could
For example, like Lilith, my beautiful baby,
identify with multiple genders, such as native or indigenous two-spirits do. Furthermore, some will identify with a gender that's neither man nor woman.
Yeah, so when they say LGBT and they have the extra acronym on there, the 2S in there, they're talking about two-spirit people, just in case, like, there's somebody that doesn't really know about LGBT stuff.
While others may have a more fluid gender identity. Some individuals identify themselves as transgender, when their gender identity is discordant from the sex assigned at birth.
Hey, that's me.
Meanwhile, there are people who don't feel any of these labels describe them or don't like the idea of identifying with a specific gender at all. Neither biological sex nor gender identity determines a person's sexual orientation. This concerns what gender or genders an individual is sexually and or romantically attracted to. An individual can be heterosexual, which means they're attracted to a different gender, or they're attracted to the same gender, and the preferred term is gay, not homosexual.
That's right.
An individual can also be bisexual, meaning attracted to two or more genders, or pansexual, meaning that they are attracted to any gender.
That's also
Some people identify as asexual, where they may not experience sexual attraction to anyone. Finally, terminology continues to change and evolve, and the words that people use to describe their sexual orientation is ever-changing and evolving as well.
That's right.
Now, depending on their gender identity, any person can choose the pronouns that suit them the best. Commonly used pronouns include he, him, his, or she, her, hers. Often a person can choose the pronouns they, them, theirs, which are more gender neutral, and you can use these pronouns when talking about someone whose gender you don't know. For instance, you might say, this patient...
Yeah. So, yeah, we got it. So what's interesting here is that this is like like I said, it's a healthcare organization that's producing videos. Is it not curious that your standard education for healthcare systems don't include anything about patients like this? And it's like, it's no joke that trans people do face like a lot of discrimination, even in healthcare, so that a lot of us will be hesitant to like go to the hospital, even like when we need it. I had a recent situation. I'm not going to tell you my personal business here. I had to go to the hospital, and I sat and talked with Lilith for quite a while about like my fear of going up there, and only because it was like serious enough and I really needed to go, was she able to convince me that to go. Lilith is she, they, by the way. So I eventually did go, but I was afraid the entire time that I was there because I did get a lot of questions about my gender and my gender identity. And unfortunately, I was misgendered up there. But after one of the other nurses corrected the other nurse for me, and it was like that nurse saw that, I was there, my spouse was there, and the other nurse was there, all gendering me correctly. That one nurse then decided to start using my legal name instead of a gender for me, because I guess they were just determined not to gender me correctly, which is like, it's one of those things that's unfortunate. It was still a decent experience overall, and the doctor was still polite and everything, even if like he wouldn't really look at me. He would just look at my chart, or just like, you know, look at whatever part of my body that he was working on. I don't know. It was awkward, but you know, at least I got some help.
Patient's name is Sam. They have diabetes, and they're here for a follow-up on their new medication. Not only is this considered grammatically correct, but pronouns like they have been used to refer to singular personal pronouns for hundreds of years, even by esteemed authors like Shakespeare and Jane Austen. When someone changes their gender expression, they may choose to go by a new first name, and might even regard their previous first name as a dead name.
That's right. Don't call me a fucking
dead name. All right,
dead
now,
name.
many individuals have to face a daily struggle of being referred to by the wrong pronoun. This is known as being misgendered. Imagine the following scenario.
Yeah. Now, unironically, this has happened to me like numerous times, like exactly what they're talking about right here. It is absolutely fucking humiliating. Like, maybe I'll have to put like a content warning or something at the beginning of this segment whenever I do it, because like this stuff is like, it really does, like, I start feeling like anxiety just like remembering back to it. Like it's
a transgender young woman named Esther is in a waiting room, and a clinician yells across the room, "Mr. Albert Kim, please follow me." Being referred to by the wrong gender or dead name or both can cause a deep sense of shame, loss of self-esteem, and leads to harassment and discrimination from others, even from healthcare staff. This is
especially it's especially egregious when the staff knows, and you know that they know, and like you talked to them and they like took your paperwork and they saw your information, so they know that you're trans, and they still do that shit anyway. That literally happened to me. Like, it's happened so many times at this point that like healthcare facilities in general just like cause me a lot of stress. Like, besides just all the normal like white coat syndrome and like worrying about going up there to find like, you know, see how your how your health is to begin with, this shit right here is like, it's awful.
This is especially true if that information is declared publicly. That young woman might not want to come back to the clinic and might even feel unsafe now that others are aware that she's transgender.
Yeah, because somebody might follow you out to your car.
Based on the 2011 National Transgender Discrimination Survey, 28% of transgender patients postponed medical care due to discrimination. 19% are refused medical care altogether, and 28% experience verbal harassment by medical professionals.
Yeah, like misgendering, that kind of stuff, or called like the T slur. I like the doctor when he came in to see me, he literally looked at me and he was like, "Oh, you must be the," then he stopped. Took a moment, and then the patient. And I wanted to ask, actually, I was curious, like, what were you about to say? But then on the other hand, I don't want to know what he was about to say to me, because it's like, it's just this kind of stuff. Like, people are like, "Oh, well, we don't know why you would like hesitate to go to the hospital, whatever else." It's like, well, if you're treated like subhuman while you're there, that's going to make you like, it's going to like dissuade you from coming back. And the problem is like, there was a survey that they did where like a group of doctors were saying like, oh, they feel like they don't get enough education on trans people's bodies in order to feel that they can like successfully like facilitate survey. And that's why I say, like, if you're trans, or you're like non-binary in any way, if you take an HRT or whatever else, like, I would probably call ahead to the hospital, or to like find an online place where you can check their like their rating to see like if they are LGBT friendly or not. And depending on where you are in the country, this can be even scarier, even worse. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. There's resources out there that you can look at to see like Facebook groups and stuff, like what people's experiences were at like any health facility. And it's like, this sucks.
That's why in a healthcare setting, it's essential to collect SOGI data, or a patient's assigned sex at birth, gender identity, and their pronouns, without making assumptions based on their name, appearance, or behavior.
Okay. Unironically here. So no joke, no like skit, no nothing, no little like funny nothing. I've gone to so many facilities over the last like couple of years. Let's say about last year and a half or so. Almost never, never have I seen gender identity on a form that I could fill out. All they want to know is what your assigned sex at birth was. Most of them don't even put a spot for gender identity, nor have I seen them put a spot for pronouns, ever. And even on forms where I've gone to to correct the form or write in the margin or like put a little note on there that I'm trans and I'm like MTF or whatever else, the staff has never used my correct information while like calling me in a waiting room or anything else. Only if it's like at a facility where I've been there a couple times and I know the nurse there personally, and the nurse comes out and she like looks at my name and she recognizes like who I am, she might, you know, gender me correctly. But I'm thinking of like one specific person right here because like otherwise this just doesn't happen. It really sucks. And this is why like Soji data and stuff like that, like absolutely is crucial for hospitals. If they want to actually treat people like correctly and like give you good health care. Let's see here. It says, well, you did at your endocrinologist. Well, yeah, see, but I wrote that stuff in and they, yeah.
Also make sure that these are documented in the electronic health record, or EHR, for other healthcare workers. Now, gathering Soji data and referring to a person as they wish can take an additional 30 seconds or so, but this is time well spent. Simply saying, I want to address you the way you want to be addressed. Can you tell me your name and pronouns?
I know. Just imagine that common human fucking decency. So surprising. I know this isn't as entertaining as like going off on Matt Walsh or fucking going after Ben Shapiro, Prager, whatever. I just thought like this is an interesting video. It's got a lot of good information in here, especially for like, you know, getting through this like so shortly and hoping that like a lot of people that might, even if they come to my channel to be like, oh, fuck you. I almost said it. They'd be like, fuck you, Zoe. I'll be like, hey, at least just watch the video. There's good stuff you can learn here.
And their families feel more comfortable and trust that they're getting the best care possible. It's important to note that Soji information can change over time, so it shouldn't be considered fixed.
Yeah.
If you accidentally refer to a patient using the wrong pronoun or their dead name.
Yeah, okay. That's it. That's all we're going to watch. If y'all are curious, and anyone wants to, they can go and look this up. Sexual orientation and gender identity by the channel Osmosis, if you really want to have the rest of it. But from this, I want to pull up. Ooh, hide that. Let's go back to the drawing pad again. Let's see here. Don't want to save. No, fuck that. Okay. So on the drawing pad, we're going to talk real quick about cis, like the way that a lot of cis people talk about gender and why it's kind of like fucking foolish here, right? So like we just saw, like there's like an umbrella and stuff, right? If you have, let's pretend like this is an umbrella. See it now. You're going to see my art again compared to that last channel. Don't fucking judge me, right? We'll say like this is an umbrella. There's a little like handle, right? Look at that shit. I'm so fucking awesome. All right. What you have is you'll have your standard like a cis person. So if you have like Ben Shapiro or any of these conservatives, their view on gender makes no fucking sense at all. And I'm going to explain real quick. I'm actually going to draw this shit because like I've explained this a couple times. Like sometimes people have looked at me and they're like, I'm not really sure where you're going with that. So, all right, I'll explain it and I'm going to draw it too. So they claim, and when I say they, I want to be clear here. I'm talking conservatives and I'm talking about like cisgender people typically that basically want to say like, you know, any type of gender identity is bullshit or whatever else. So let's talk about that real quick. And this is like when they say like, oh, it's only biological. So in the worldview, the reason why this shit is completely like ass backwards is because if you say that the only options of people that you can have are male on one side, and then you have female on the other side, right? Let me draw a little person here. And then you say, okay, well, what makes that person like, why is that the only two? Because we're talking about a category, right? So what we're actually getting at. And they say like, well, that's because this person over here has like, you know, their genitals are they've got a penis and this person has a vagina. And they're like, biologically, they have all the traits over here that make them a man. And this person has all the traits over here that like make them a woman according to their like ideology or their theory, right? Well, what happens then, we'll use blue. I like blue. So what happens when you end up with a blue person over here, right? You say, well, who's this blue person? This blue person is going to be a trans person. This is going to be a trans male. And then over here on this side, we're going to put a trans woman. Now, it's going to it's going to get like way more. Here we go. We'll put trans woman, and then over here, we'll put trans man. Now, if we look back at the very like original identity that they were claiming, right? They said that what was making this person over here like male because they had a penis. Well, let's say, and I'm not trying to, I want to make this very clear. I'm saying this is from their point of view, okay? I don't agree with this point of view because I'm going to point out that even if you go and you grant, if you say like, okay, well, according to them, you have to have all these parts in order to be legitimate or whatever else. I understand you don't have to get my comments. You don't have to tell me that it's a trans medicalist like stance. I know that's not my opinion on this. All right. So hands up on that. Don't do nothing. This is their point of view and why it's incoherent. If they say that you have to have like a penis to be over here and a vagina to be over here, well, if this trans man, if they've gone through all these surgeries, they would have a penis. And if this trans woman went through all of her surgeries and stuff, she would end up having a vagina. And you could say, well, they have a neo penis and they have a neo vagina. Well, that's fine, but they still have a vagina and they still have a penis on the other side. So then you say, well, if you list all the other secondary traits that make somebody a biological male, the trans man could have that too. And if you say all the other traits like mammaries and all that kind of stuff that would make somebody be like biologically female, stuff that you can't like really see inside their body, but they would have those traits too. So then they end up falling back to something where they say like chromosomes. And we already know why the idea like XX and XY and stuff is like really dumb. They say like this side is the XX side and this side is the XY side. All right, whoops. Oh, that's so funny. I forgot this is conservatives. So this side is XY and this side is XX. Okay. So the problem is with this worldview, you already have people that have both sets. You are right. Holy shit. Getting too far ahead of myself. Should be the purple. There we go. Yeah, can you tell I'm fucking like thinking like so far ahead here? Okay. So the problem is, and this is like what I really want to get to, is what if you end up having though, like people that end up having chromosomes on the other side. So this person over here has XX chromosomes, but they present like completely masculine because they're intersex people. So this person is intersex. And this person over here with XY, they're intersex, right? So now you say, well, this person's naturally born. They had no surgeries, no nothing, but they're on the wrong side again, according to like cis hetero, like gender ideology, or whatever the fuck, like they're thinking. So even in like a viewpoint like Ben Shapiro's, whatever else, you end up with this incoherent system where you continuously can end up with people that are presenting incorrectly, whatever, on either side. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And that's not even when we get to what we would look at as like a, let's say the, let's use some green here. And you say that you end up having like the fucking, non-binary. So now in like the same type of thing, if you have like a Ben Shapiro, they have to say like, oh, well, there's just some amount of people that we can't really tell either one. And he would say that, well, this person has the XX that's over here. This person should actually be like in the middle right here somewhere. And this person has this XY should be over here in the middle somewhere. But the problem is that there are so many fucking people that don't fit into either side of this thing. That's why this binary stuff is complete bullshit. That you end up like in their worldview with no way to make any distinguishing like categories of any, like you end up with people just everywhere that are inconsistent, that have the wrong, what they would say is like the wrong chromosomes, the wrong genitals, whatever, on either side of this umbrella. That's why ultimately this stuff just doesn't make any fucking sense from where they're coming from. Now, like from where we are, like our side of this, would end up saying that, you have your umbrella again, right? And the side that affirms LGBT people would say that we already recognize that there is a spectrum, like, period. And in that spectrum, we'll do it like this. Then we'll have like some green over here. Say that there's green in the middle, and there's like pink on the side. For us, none of that shit is a problem. Because if you have self-ID, like first of all, then you can take your people and you can say it doesn't matter like what fucking chromosomes you have. Like none of this shit like actually matters. What matters is like how you're presenting yourself. And if you cite this side over here is going to be like the traditionally understood binary of what like it is to be masculine. And this side over here is going to be like the traditionally understood binary of what it means to be a woman. Then in the middle, you have a giant area of non-binary people. So then you can have your traits of like, you can have the categories and you can have them make sense. So you can have like, a cis woman over here. You can have a trans woman over here. You can have a non-binary person that also identifies as a woman. And the same thing like on any one of these categories. You can have your person in the middle that has no gender. You can have a person in the middle that is like gender fluid. Like for us, this shit makes sense and it works. And then over here you have cis men and you have trans men and you have non-binary people that also identify as masculine. Like we can account for all of this, and society makes sense in our worldview. It works better like this because then you say, okay, well, I understand what this group has in common, and I have like what this group has in common, and then what the central group has in common. It works a lot better than a stupid fucking binary where you have one line in the middle and you say, well, we have to find a way to put everybody on this side and everybody on the other side. And I know before someone comes in here in my video once again and says, Zoe, there's a lot more than just 3 categories. I know. I'm saying that if you have, like, as an example, you could divide up the masculine category, like, like into a whole bunch smaller categories. And you could say like, well, you have non-binary men and you have trans, men and you have cis men, but they're all men. Then on the other side, you have, trans women, cis women, non-binary women, whatever. Like they're still women. Because not to just totally riff on what Walsh was saying here, but a woman that looks like a white woman, a black woman, trans woman, they're all women. A cis man, a trans man, a non-binary man, a man with muscles, a short man, a tall man, they're all men too. Non-binary people that are short, tall, fat, skinny, if they are non-binary, then they are non-binary people. Our worldview can account for this. And that what that SOGI data is trying to find is it's trying to record something like this, where you say like where ought we categorize these people so that we can give them the best healthcare, and not only physically, like, epistemologically, make sure that their body is getting the treatment that they need, but make sure that also psychologically that they are feeling okay and that they feel like they're actually like being taken care of and that we actually fucking care about them. Whew. All right. Does anybody, like, I can't think of anything more to talk about as far as that goes. I think I cover, like, I covered most fucking everything on there, right? Does anybody, like, I'm going to get to furries in a second, but up until I get to furries, does anybody, do you think, like, if you have a comment on this, if you have a question on it, if you say, like, hey, Zoe, like, I don't agree with whatever, like, explain to me why you don't agree with what I just said. And if you're like a trans person and you want to like discuss it and you feel like you don't want to be public or whatever, you can DM me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is the exact same thing as my name here on YouTube. Because I understand if you're like, you're not as confrontational, or you're like, hey, I just think you got something wrong, or you could like have said that better, or whatever else. I'm always open to suggestions. But if you're a conservative and you're going to like just pop in here and tell me that like I'm just like a dipshit because I'm trans or something like that, I need you to explain how the fuck that binary makes any more sense than an actual like a spectrum of categories that better like that better suit human needs. Like, even if you're like utilitarian, that is a more utilitarian like function is served there. If you're all about like self-ID, then people can self-ID into these different categories. You're not saying like you have to fit this fucking binary. I hate that shit. Take a drink real quick. Delicious tea. All right. So, for my final segment this evening, and hopefully I have kept y'all entertained throughout this, I want to talk about furries. Now, if anybody, and yes, I have Wikipedia up. So I'm going to start with this. You might say, Zoe, if you're going to talk about furries, are you going to pull up a video and watch some video about furries? Or are you going to criticize it, whatever else? No, I'm not. I'm not going to watch a video on furries because even though my channel is pretty fucking small, I don't want anybody that watches my channel to feel that they ought to go over and harass any furries. I'm not confident enough that like the types of people that come by my channel, or sometimes they'll stop by to harass me over on YouTube, or well, on YouTube and on Twitter. I don't want to send any hate towards any furries because I don't hate furries. Yeah, woo. I see you over there. But what I'll say is furries get a lot of unreasonable hatred sent their way. Their community started off as like a science fiction subculture. Actually, I can read the fucking wiki for you. But I did want to start and talk about like why I didn't want to send like hate over to furries or anything else. So, the furry fandom is a subculture interested in anthropomorphic animal characters with human personalities and characteristics. Examples of anthropomorphic attributes include exhibiting human intelligence, facial expressions, speaking, blah, 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 blah. The term furry fandom is also used to refer to the community of people who gather on the internet and at furry conventions. So, furries are very, they spun off from science fiction and fantasy communities. There is a large portion of them that are into anime. There's also a very large portion of furries that are LGBT. They have conventions where they all get together, and some of them wear these like costumes that are like mascot costumes that are called fursuits. This group gets so much hatred. It's ridiculous. Look at that. Look how cute that is. Like, I just don't get, like, when you see, like, furries, like, that are sitting there and just having a good time. They're going to conventions. And it's like somebody's like, oh, you know what? Fuck them. And look at them over there having fun. I can't believe those furries would enjoy dressing up like animals. And it's like, aren't there every other fandom? Aren't there, like, anime conventions and shit where people go there and cosplay as their favorite, like, fucking anime characters, or katana, like Mortal Kombat and that kind of stuff? Yeah, if you like Zootopia, exactly, Lilith. If you like Zootopia, if you like films like Lion King and stuff like that, if you like media that contains like anthropomorphic creatures or critters or whatever else, like, not only would you be a furry liking that, but that art in and of itself would be considered like furry art. That community is also like extremely creative. They make those fursuits. They also, like, they draw and produce like short animated films and all kinds of shit. Anything to do with, those furry type characters. It can be like feral creatures like on 4 legs. They can be on 2 legs like humans. They can be aliens. They can be, like from another planet. They can be like angels or demons, whatever. Like, furries are like very creative with what will be allowed. Like, literally, as long as it's it looks like some form of animal, even if it's like a machine. Like, there's like protogens that are like basically like cyborgs and stuff like that. Furries are like, I don't know. I don't understand the hate that's against them. There's also like furries are very popular in a like virtual world called Second Life, if you are or are not familiar with that, which is like, I don't know. There is a huge, and I mean huge portion of LGBT population amongst furries. It was something like trans people are like 2% in the furry population, from like at a time when the general population was like 0.1 or something like that. So it's like diversity is very prevalent there, and a lot of the spaces are like very tolerant and everything. The conventions are fun. If you go there, it's like, they have like events, and they do like shows and stage shows and stuff where it's like you can go and enjoy yourself. But the media, like Vanity Fair, Wired, like they've produced some pretty awful stuff about furries. CSI did an episode. All of this stuff is like just outrageously exaggerated. There's also like wild accusations of like sexual degeneracy and stuff like that. And it's all just people not understanding like what a furry is. And it's like a furry is just somebody who's a fan of the art. And I don't understand like why you would hate someone for like just enjoying the things that they enjoy. It's just so fucking weird to me. And it's like, I've seen over and over and over, like there was a recent video. Oh, that's what we can do. Hold on. It's a live stream. Anything can happen. Let's look at this shithead. Wait. Oh, did he get deleted? How a racist goat furry. There are some reactionaries. Oh, yeah, right. Fucking base. All right. Nah, fuck that. We'll just go back to Wikipedia. And we'll go back to furry. Furry fandom. I think that's furry fandom. Yeah, see, this is like the live show. What you got? There is some portion of the furry fandom that does take an interest in like you have like neo-Nazis, you have far-right conservatives. There's a furry that made a video. His name was Argus Argle, something like that, where he basically like made a video like defending racism, this sort of thing. So you do have like, there are of course like bad actors even among their community, even though as accepting as it is. They started off in the area of science fiction, and they kind of like branched out from there as they became like their own like subculture of the science fiction community. If you are somebody got deleted. Oh, here we go. Deadpan says fursuits can be so detailed in PragerU. I remember way back on a show called Check It Out, the main character, Dr. Steve Rule, met some furries. Oh yeah. Yeah, spicy is what the media sells. You know, he got deleted. Lilith. I've never heard of that show either. Yeah, I remember Drew Carey had an episode where he was like he was dating a girl or whatever, and it was like he wanted to take her out somewhere, and then she was like, oh, before we go, like, I gotta show you something to see if like, you know, if you're if we can hang out. And she comes back in like a scroll fursuit or something like that. And it's like the whole point of that was just like mockery and laughter and stuff like that. It's Drew Carey. But the thing is, like, this is a community that, just like the LGBT community, like, they literally existed in like web forms and stuff like that, and mucks and that kind of stuff. And they started off as like this tiny community of people that just had a shared interest in like anthropomorphic stuff. That's like as the community like grew and grew, the movies like The Lion King came out. You know, Disney's produced all kinds of stuff that's got like furry characters involved in it. If you look at a movie like Raya and the Last Dragon that just came out, the dragon character in that like film would be a furry character. Deadpan says it was sort of a fake public access comedy with John Riley as the lead character. I don't know. Maybe I'll check it out. But I don't know. Is there anything that any of y'all like? Does anybody have any contention with anything that I've covered tonight? Like, because I've got a Discord. If you want to talk to me, like, we could also hop in the Discord. I don't mind talking or arguing with anybody. I was thinking that that conservative that was in here earlier, I actually had 2 of them. It was surprising. Let's see here. It says it's also a spinoff of Tim and Eric. Great show. No. Thank you. I think that's about everything I wanted to cover. I don't want to like drop on somebody else's stream. I just want to check. I actually wrote notes this time because last time I was winging it. So we talked about Prager and ethics, talked about abortion. I covered, oh, I want to talk about this. Okay. So I want to talk about the LGB without the T, and I forgot about this shit. I can sure pull something up real quick. So, if y'all know what the fuck the LGB without the T is, they are a... Hey, actually, I'll cover that later. I'm going to wrap it up with the furry section. I'm trying to think of if there's anything else that... Oh, yeah. So, So there are plenty of people that, like, just irrationally, like, hate furries. Like, just absolutely fucking hate them. And it's like, everywhere you look online, if you mention furries, or like people will say, you know, let's say like a woo or a whoa, whatever else, and people, like some people get like fucking pissed about this. And it's like, most furries that like I've known in real life and that like I've met and stuff are really nice people. Like, I don't like the hatred that they get is totally fucking unreasonable, and it's unreal. There are some like pretty like weirdos that are also furries. Just like any other community, you can have you know, the very bad actors or bad apples where you're like, no, stay away from them. Like, this happens in YouTube, no matter where you go. Like, there are some people where you're like, no, that person is like, I would not go near them. And it's like, I don't want to call out anybody specifically. Oh yeah, Xander Hall. So yeah, Xander Hall is an issue. Like, all right, when I say he was an issue, I mean, I took issue with the fact that, like, when he covered Argus Argle, he basically, like, called out Argle for being a furry, saying that, oh, God, he's furry, blah, blah, blah. Then, like, maybe a couple days later, he covered another video, which ended up was another, like, conservative furry. And before he even, like, got into the video, I remember he, like, paused it, and he went on this, like, rant about, like, how he hates furries and thinks that they're disgusting, and if like, he was saying, like, if you are a furry in his audience, like, he's never not going to find you cringe or whatever else. Now, I know it's like just getting into some petty drama here, but it irritated me. And I don't understand why, like, if you have that as big of a platform as he does, and there is furry YouTube, and there are, like, plenty of furries on Twitter and TikTok and that kind of stuff, they were mostly ran off of TikTok by, like, hate that they got. When someone like Xander that has like such a large following, hold on a second. Huh. Sorry, I was being choked to death. I was eating my hair. When you have someone like Xander that has such a large following, to sit here and say to your audience, like, if you're a furry, I will never not find you disgusting. I'm like, that, like, why would you say that? Especially because, like, the furry community itself did not, like, come after Xan, hasn't done anything to them. He just finds them, like, weird or whatever else. And I'm like, that we wouldn't hold that this is okay with any other group. If he had said the same thing about any minority group or, like, other than groups that are specifically being antagonistic. Like, if you say something like, oh, like, fuck you, white supremacist, whatever else, it's like, well, that makes sense because a lot of those people, like, their goal is to harm other people. So you're kind of like fighting back against them. With furries, it's not the same way. So when you say something like, you know, furries are cringy and furries are disgusting or whatever else, and it's like, you've got this platform, especially if you are on the left, it's like, you're supposed to be like, I know that people make a joke all the time, like, oh, so much for the tolerant left. And it's like, I unironically do feel like we shouldn't just be like shitting on entire communities of people when that community has not done anything to anyone other than just like existing and just having a good time. And it's like on Second Life or on like any of the furry mucks, or if you're on like YouTube, whatever, occasionally you're going to have people that come by. Like, if you just go through their comments, like the ones that are not moderated or not closed, get some really crazy, hateful shit that's posted there. The, KYS stuff and all that. Do you think people hate more furries or vegans? Whew. Probably vegans, right? I'm being real here. I think the average person, I think, like, if you ask the average person, what do they think about furries? A lot of people don't even know what a furry is. But, well, to be fair, a lot of people don't know what vegans are either. But I think if you explain to them what a furry is, they would just be like, well, that sounds kind of weird. But if you explain to them, like, what a vegan is, they actually get, like, really offended. Because they're like, oh, how dare you? You're trying to say that, like, eating meat is bad or whatever else. And it's like, yeah, it is. If you're like an ethical vegan, then yeah, killing and making other animals suffer just so you can get a burger, it's not really that cool. But like, I think more people would be offended with vegans, because veganism is kind of like asserting that, like, they ought to change, like, something that they're doing, especially like their diet, which is, like, very personal to people. I don't know. Should I do a vegan segment? How about this? Should I find someone to respond to? I'm having to, if you're wondering, by the way, like, what's up with my typing and shit, I'm having to reach, like, over my fucking drawing pad here, my sketchbook. So I had to, like, type this stuff over here. How do you say I'm a bad person for killing burgers? I know, right? Let's see here. Vegan. Let's see. Ethics. How about that? What do we get for vegan ethics? 5 ethical reasons. Killing animals for food. Which one do you think looks good? 6 years ago, 2 years ago. Every argument against veganism. Well, that's probably a... Oh, no. That's Earthling Ed. Why it's morally... Ooh, this would be good. This is somebody that's against me. Why killing animals is okay.
My name is Tyler Doggett. I teach at the University of Vermont, and I'm going to talk about whether it's morally permissible to kill animals for food.
Okay. It's going to be complicated, because you say, like, is it morally permissible to kill animals for food? Well, yeah, if, certain conditions are met, like survival or whatever else. But we'll see what he gets to do.
One thing I'm not going to talk about is whether it's morally permissible to eat animals for food. I'm also not going to talk about whether it's morally okay, to buy animals for food. What I want to talk about is whether it's morally permissible to kill animals for food in the first place. And we do kill a lot of animals for food each year. Millions of pigs are killed for food each year. Is that permissible? Over 20 million pigs were killed last year for food.
That's
is that morally permissible? In particular, is it morally permissible to kill pigs for food that we don't need to eat? I'm not talking about a situation where you're all alone on a desert island, and if you don't kill that pig, you're going to die. I'm talking about the situation we're in right now, which is we don't have to kill pigs to eat. We could all eat kale sandwiches.
We should.
But instead,
not kale,
because they're delicious, we kill millions of pigs each year. Is that morally permissible? That's what I want to talk about.
It depends on your ethics,
let's talk about a different question first. Is it morally permissible to kill people for food?
Well, people are just animals, right?
And again, I'm not talking about a situation like the Donner Party or...
Yeah, no. So why not? Why wouldn't you talk about a situation like that? All right, so if you're going to sit here and say that, oh, it's fine just to... Pigs on the fence. I know, it's so fucking... like, okay. Now, this actually triggers me a little bit on this, because, like, all right, I'm a vegan. Just, there you go. You know my bias. I am a vegan. That's why I'm, of course, responding to this. And it's like, I just want to point out here that when you say, I'm not talking about the Donner Pass, it's like, well, wait a minute. If you already set up a situation where you're like, oh, I'm not talking about, if you're on a stranded island with a pig, but, there's all these pigs that we kill just arbitrarily. But you're like, oh, I don't want to talk about killing these people for food. It's because he would have to admit that if you were starving and you had no other choice, you don't necessarily And that's why he's saying he doesn't want to talk eating people, because technically if you are starving and you were like on the Donner Pass situation, and it's like you're one of the last people there, and there's just these like dead bodies, it's just meat to you at that point. It's like, is it permissible? Well, I mean, like, how are you going to argue this? Because I don't see a way for you to have a consistent set of ethics to argue that it's okay just to arbitrarily, randomly, like, make other beings suffer just for the hell of it. But it's not the same, like, necessarily to inflict that same, like, level of harm onto humans without some justification. I want to know what that justification is.
Situations where people crash land on a deserted island, and if they don't eat each other, they're going to die. I mean,
why not?
Would it be permissible for you to keep some stranger in your house and kill that stranger for food rather than eat a kale sandwich?
That's so
We don't have
gross.
to talk about that question for very long. That has an easy answer. No, it is morally impermissible to kill people for food you don't need to eat. So let me ask you this.
Hold on. So is the implication there that it's okay to kill them if you're going to eat them? What the fuck?
If it is permissible to kill pigs for food, but not permissible to kill people for food, there must be some difference between pigs and people.
I think that all of us can tell that there is a difference between a human being and a fucking pig.
I
would like the
justification.
justification.
Pig,
What's
but
the
not
ethics?
the person. So what's the difference?
Please.
Here's an idea. The pig is a pig. The person is a person. So
by fiat, it's a tautology.
this difference, I think, is supposed to be a difference in genetic makeup, the type of DNA the pig has. That's different from our genetic makeup. So is that the kind of difference that explains why it's morally permissible to kill the pig, but not morally permissible to kill us? Let me ask you this. There's a Twilight Zone episode called To Serve Man. If you want to see that episode, you should skip this part of the video because I'm going to give away something very important. In the Twilight Zone episode To Serve Man, aliens come to Earth, and to make a long story short, they're farming us for food. Is that morally permissible? And I think, no, it's not permissible for me to eat people for food I don't need. Neither is it permissible for aliens to eat us.
What? Why not? What if they're a hyper-intelligent species that is so smart it makes us, like how pigs are very intelligent, but we are way more intelligent than pigs? What if this alien race is so fucking like hyper-intelligent that it makes human beings to them we are like just like literally like dumb apes?
But then imagine the alien says, but don't you see? You're a different sort of creature than we are. We have totally different genetic makeups. That does not seem like a very good answer the alien's given. One thing you might say is, yes, I see that we have different genetic makeups, but I'm still the kind of thing you shouldn't kill. But a pig might say that to us if we say, it's permissible for us to kill you because you're a pig and we are people. But maybe what you're getting at when you say a pig's a person a person is people are special because, well, for one thing, we're quite a bit smarter than pigs, which isn't to say pigs are dummies. Pigs are pretty smart. People, just smarter. Okay. One thing you might ask is, why does that make it okay to kill the pig?
How long is this video?
But that's not what I want to ask. Because while I think
right,
you're smarter than a pig,
halfway through.
you're watching a philosophy
We're halfway
video.
through.
Not
If y'all like, I don't know. This might be the most contentious, like, it's probably one of the most contentious subjects I've covered yet. Like, ironically, right? Are y'all vegans? Like, in the chat, like, I'm just like, am I subjecting you to this? Like, people are like, oh God, like, Zoe, how, like, why?
everyone is smarter than a pig. In fact, we all know some creatures, some people even probably, who are not smarter than pigs. Is it okay to eat those people? No, that's not a hard question. Now, one reason it might be you shouldn't eat people who have mental lives of pigs. We care about those people. It might be that my brother has the mental life of a pig, but it would be wrong to kill him for food because I care about him. But let me ask you two things about this. First, why does caring about my brother make a difference? If the reason it's wrong to kill my severely mentally handicapped brother for food is because I care about him, then what you're saying is the reason it's wrong doesn't have to do with my brother so much as it has to do with me.
Well, no, not necessarily, because it could be the fact that what if I said that the reason why I don't want to kill your brother and I don't want to kill Pig is because I want to reduce the amount of suffering that living beings like experience during their time on the planet, especially as a direct byproduct of like something that I'm doing. So I don't want to harm your brother, and I don't want to live in a society where, like, let's say something could happen to me and damage me and make me like no smarter than a pig. I don't want to live in the world. I don't want to exist there where somebody could like just come along and just like arbitrarily kill me. Or if I have like family that, you know, something could befall them. I don't want anybody else to be able to come over and just be like, oh, I might as well just, you know, like, end their life just because I can. But I'm not hearing a compelling reason of why we shouldn't try to at least reduce the harm that these pigs are facing. Like, why should we only care about reducing harm for people? Because that's what you're essentially arguing.
And that does not seem correct. Seems like there's something about what you're doing to my brother when you kill him for food. It's objectionable. It has nothing to do with what you're doing to me. Well, let me ask you a different question. What if no one cared about my brother? What if my brother, with the mental life of a pig, were a hermit? No one cared about him. No one even knew about him. Would it be permissible to kill him for food then? I don't think so. I still think this is not a hard question. What we're looking for is a difference between people and pigs that explains.
Now, the question is, why don't you have empathy for the animals? Like, you're like, oh, we clearly value the humans, definitely, but you don't give a shit about the animals. My question to you would be, why don't you have empathy for the animals? Why don't you feel that we should reconsider what we're doing to them, especially like factory farming and all that sort of thing?
Why it's morally permissible to kill pigs for food, but not permissible to kill
there's a philosophy video, and
we've tried some differences out. They're different species.
Oh, I hope
that
not.
doesn't really seem to explain it.
Should I fast forward
People are smarter in general than pigs.
Should I skip
that
around?
Doesn't seem to explain it either. We care about people, don't care about pigs. That doesn't seem to explain it either. What else? Well, here's something people say sometimes when you talk about this. The pig would do it to us. Put a person with a pig. The pig might eventually eat the person.
Yeah, but if a person had the intelligence of a pig and they didn't see a sufficient difference between, like, you know, us and them, and then like us, you know, somebody else came along, got injured and like rendered unconscious, the person that is like no smarter than a pig, if they like have like they could still have the, you know, locomotive capacity to move around, stuff like that, they might accidentally eat another person without realizing
Does that show it's morally permissible for the person to eat the pig? Let me ask you a different question. Have you ever been punched by a very small child? I have. Do you think it was permissible for me to punch the child back, reasoning he did it to me, therefore it's permissible for me to do it to him? I think that would not be very good reasoning. It would be wrong to punch the child, even though the child would do it to me. In fact, I think the child, if the child is young enough, doesn't do anything wrong.
Aren't the pigs, in your scenario, aren't the pigs the child? And we're the Supermen that can just like endlessly punch them and they're not able to fight back? Isn't this shoot your own argument in the foot?
If it does it to me. The child is not the kind of thing that does anything right or wrong. But still, we might do wrong to it.
Yeah, and pigs don't do right or wrong either.
We're the top of the food chain. You know,
who cares?
Where we live, in places where we can watch philosophy videos.
Argument from
Obviously,
authority.
If we lived in the ocean.
We're the smartest. We're the best.
But
we get to do whatever we want to because we can.
So isn't it
I thought he was going to make a
like
take advantage. He keeps asking morality. I think he's going to make ethical
whatever we want for food. It might be that we're in a position to do various things to other animals because we're the top of the food chain. But that doesn't mean it's morally permissible for us to do it.
That's right.
I'm a very small person. I'm constantly dealing with people who are much bigger than I am, who are much stronger than I am, who could pound me to a pulp very easily. Well, imagine they did. And I said, you shouldn't have done that. That was morally wrong. And they say, but don't you see? I'm stronger than you. That's terrible reasoning. Of course they're stronger than me. But what I wanted to know is why it was okay for them to express their strength in that way. Similarly, it might be that we're above the pig on the food chain. And as we get ready to kill the pig to eat it, the pig might say, why are you eating me? And we just say, we can.
Yeah, but you're just like, I like that. He's just like, I really worry. Like, Lilith, you might be right on this one. It sounds like, see, I was thinking, the video was titled, like, why is that, like, okay to, like, kill and eat animals? So I was hoping that from a vegan stance, I could like discuss this, talk about it. I don't want to like, there are YouTubers I know that have recently talked about veganism, but I don't want to go and causing like, I'm not looking to do like a drama stream like toward especially other like leftists and that kind of stuff, because I know like the right just absolutely like they don't give a shit about veganism. I was just curious what this person's ethics is, and it's like a 9-minute fucking video, and we're almost like 8 minutes into it.
We have control over you. That does not seem like a very good answer. Sometimes people say something related, which is, that's just the way nature is. To answer that question, I asked first a very easy question, whether it's okay to kill people for food. That's an easy question. The answer is no. And then I asked, what's the difference between people?
If they were already dead, then you could eat them, right? I mean, like everyone knows this has happened before. It's happened over and over and over. And you can sit there all day long and say like, well, it's not morally okay to kill someone even if you're going to eat them. All right, that's fine. We all agree with that. But everyone knows that if you are starving or you're stranded in some camp or whatever, like it crashed somewhere and you can't get out, that somebody's going to end up eating someone else.
People and pigs, such that it's permissible to kill pigs for food, even though it's not permissible to kill people. And I've gone through a bunch of differences. None of them seem like they do the work that's required. None of them seem like they explain why it's okay to kill pigs for food, but it's not okay to kill people for food.
Yeah,
so I hope you will help me figure out the answer, or decide it's morally wrong to kill pigs.
So, oh my God, you're right. God damn it. Sat through all of that just for nothing. There's no like, I feel like, you know, like you ever have like an orgasm and it's like, but it's just like nothing happens. It's like just sad. You're like, I'm waiting for it. It's building up. It's building up. It's building up. Then it's like, then nothing happens. And you're just like, the fuck was this? It's all right. All right. So I'll touch on this. God damn it. I'll have to like do my own little like rant here or whatever. Fuck you, Tyler. Like your stupid like fucking university ways. All right. I'll just say this, that I know, right? And now everybody fucking leaves. They're like, oh, like you're just sitting here in front of like some dude's video. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. I'll just say that for the record, I think that we have an obligation to reduce the amount of suffering that we cause. This includes like to other living creatures, like, you know, pigs and cows or whatever else. The stuff that we do to them, like in factory farming, is absolutely horrific. The idea that like people could say that they are like against, like they object to bestiality, for instance, but then they have no problem with what we do in the dairy industry, which requires cows to be like forcibly impregnated, and then like after they give birth, if it's a you know, if it is a girl cow, we keep the cow, and if it's a boy cow, we like send the cow off to get slaughtered, because all we care is if they have udders or not, like to keep producing on dairy farms. And that's just dairy. We chop the beaks off the chickens, like stick feeding tubes in them. We also like we'll chop their beaks off so they can't like peck each other to death. Like we do absolutely like horrific things to these poor animals. And it's like on one hand, like I could grant that it is possible that somebody could raise like a little farm and only like gather the eggs that aren't fertilized or you know, whatever, and get some food that way. But that's like, we're so far off from that. Like all I care about is incrementally reducing the amount of animal suffering. But I wasn't really prepared to sit here and talk about veganism. I really wish I had a better video, so I could have like had something more contentious instead of like sitting here and just being lectured by somebody who's like, it's fine to eat meat. Well, I hope that everybody enjoyed the stream, and please, if you have not subscribed, please like the stream and please subscribe. It would help out a whole lot. And you can follow me over on Twitter if you want to argue about any of the stuff that I posted here. And holy shit, I've like way overexposed. That's fine. It's all fine. Well, I will see y'all next time. Thank you for spending this evening with me.